Douluo, the martial spirit of the Sharingan and the lightning fruit. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 151 Ice Crystal Beast. Ling Yu led several girls to walk into the frozen forest. Looking at the unusual scenery around them, the girls showed expressions of amazement and joy, as if the two battles just now had not happened. No wonder they were so excited. Even Ling Yu had never seen such a strange and beautiful scenery for the first time. Every tree around seemed to be made of ice crystals, crystal clear and beautiful. Every leaf was an enlarged version of snowflakes, beautiful and unusual, just like a fairy tale world. Seeing this beautiful scenery, Ling Yu also sighed that there was no camera here, otherwise such a beautiful scenery, if taken, would definitely get a good ranking in the photography competition. Looking at the girls behind him who looked like they were traveling, Shui Wuxin said helplessly, "Be careful, we are getting deeper and deeper here, and evil soul masters may appear at any time. If you are not careful again, you may be killed at any time." Hearing Shui Wuxin's serious words, several girls finally restrained themselves a little, but when they thought of a young man as powerful as Ling Yu hiding around, they felt an inexplicable sense of security in their hearts. Shui Wuxin shook his head and continued to walk forward with several people. However, they did not encounter any evil soul masters along the way. Instead, they encountered some ice soul beasts that are unique to the far north. Most of them are decades or hundreds of years old, with relatively gentle personalities, and they did not take the initiative to attack them. Soon, when everyone was walking deep into the forest, Shui Wuxin gestured to the girls behind them. Everyone stopped and their expressions became serious. "The ice crystal beasts should be gathering in front of us. I can already feel their breath," Shui Wuxin said to the girls behind them. "Binger and Zuwu, I will help you to contain the stronger soul beasts. Once you find a suitable target, use the martial soul fusion technique and go all out to solve it as soon as possible. We will return as soon as possible." Her expression was unusually serious. "I always feel that this journey is quite strange, and something bad may happen." Shui Binger and Zuwu looked at each other and nodded at the same time. The firm eyes made Shui Wuxin on the side couldn't help but show a look of relief. After seeing that the girls were already prepared, Shui Wuxin led everyone forward slowly. After a while, when they came to a relatively wide and flat area in the woods, dozens of soul beasts with ice blue crystals on their surfaces and similar appearance to ordinary bears appeared in front of them. "This is the ice crystal beast." The information provided by Ling Yu is indeed very accurate. The moment Shui Yu saw the ice crystal beast, she couldn't help but whispered, "Sister, now your fourth soul ring has been found." Shui Binger was also excited. Shui Wuxin, who was standing next to her, opened her pretty eyes and began to select these ice crystal beasts. "Binger, the last one on the left, remind the one that is nearly 3 meters long. Judging from the number of ice crystals on his body, he is exactly 4,500 years old." "This is the one," Shui Wuxin said to Shui Binger and Zuwu. "I will take the lead in injuring him, and then I will stop those who are stronger. At that time, you two will immediately use the martial soul fusion technique. Do you understand?" "Yes," too after hearing Shui Wuxin's instructions. Shui Binger and Zuwu nodded solemnly. Both of them knew that at this time, they could not be careless. Shui Wuxin nodded, and after a few seconds, the plump beautiful woman kicked her feet and her body instantly appeared in the air more than 10 meters high. Then a strange bird soul beast appeared behind the woman, which made Ling Yu, who was observing on the ground, look surprised. "Ice bird," Ling Yu said in surprise. "This is a martial soul that is only slightly weaker than the ice phoenix. Its single round speed is even faster than that of the ice phoenix, and its control over the ice element is only slightly weaker than that of the ice phoenix. It can be said that this martial soul can even be compared with Daimubei's evil-eyed white tiger in terms of attack and other aspects. It seems that the Shui family must have some secrets. With such a strong martial soul, it is very likely to cultivate to title Douluo, but why hasn't a title Douluo appeared in hundreds of years?" Ling Yu looked at Shui Wuxin, who is already possessed by a martial soul in the sky. At this time, the other party's already plump and soft body became more round, and a bunch of ice blue wings grew behind her, revealing the powerful aura of a soul Douluo. The face is not inferior to Shui Binger at all, and with the fierce momentum of the other party at this moment, there is a different kind of beauty. Even Ling Yu couldn't help but look at it a few more times. Fifth soul skill, Ice Crystal Cage. 2 yellow, 2 purple and 4 black soul rings rose from the opponent's body. As the 5th soul ring flashed a dark light, Shui Wuxin's wings behind him flapped violently. A burst of white mist quickly enveloped several thousand-year-old ice crystal beasts. The ice mist solidified and quickly connected to form several cages to imprison the opponent. After sensing Shui Wuxin's actions, several powerful imprisoned members of the Ice Crystal Beast clan instantly let out several angry roars. After the roar, the opponent began to use his heavy body to violently hit the ice crystal cage. The clanging sound continued to ring. Although the cage still existed, after being hit by these ice crystal beasts, dense cracks began to appear, as if it would break in the next moment. Seeing this, Shui Wuxin did not hesitate at all, and the 6th black soul ring on his body lit up. 6th soul skill, Icy Strangulation. The woman's eyes began to emit an icy blue light, and her hands and wings also flashed an icy blue light. In an instant, Shui Wuxin waved his wings and wrists, attacking the selected ice crystal beast. Boom! There began to be a violent noise on the ground, and the selected ice crystal beast let out a few terrified roars. But the next moment, 2 ice crystal dragons more than 10 meters long suddenly rushed out from the ground, and each dragon was covered with sharp icicles. The 2 dragons connected head to tail and began to entangle and tear the ice crystal beast. Now, Binger, Zuwu, do it. Shui Wuxin's control of soul skills is very precise. With his soul skill, he can kill the 4,500-year-old ice crystal beast in an instant, but he only controls the 2 ice crystal dragons to entangle the opponent and pierce the opponent's body joints with icicles, making the opponent unable to move. Shui Binger and Zuwu were no longer afraid of this. They hugged each other, holding their forepalms tightly together, and their foreheads pressed against each other. Buzz! A vibration began to emerge from the 2 girls, and a dazzling ice phoenix and a huge snowflake rose from each other's bodies. Under the guidance of the vibration, 6 soul rings emerged from each other's bodies, and the 2 martial souls began to blend, entangle, and fuse with each other. Martial Soul Fusion Skill, Ice and Snow Flying. Chapter 152, Shocking Change. As the 2 people's voices fell, the surrounding snowflakes began to drift and fly. The next moment, a 10-meter-long ice phoenix appeared in front of everyone, spreading a pair of huge ice crystal wings and flapping them continuously in the sky. At this time, the figures of Shui Binger and Zuwu had disappeared, replaced by the huge ice phoenix in the sky. With a cry, the giant bird flapped its wings and flew quickly towards the ice crystal beast that was entangled by 2 giant dragons and could not move. At this time, the cage that Shui Wuxin imprisoned the ice crystal beast suddenly broke. Bang! A loud noise sounded, and the several thousand-year-old ice crystal beasts that escaped from the trap roared angrily at Shui Wuxin in the sky. Then, white light emerged from the body of each ice crystal beast, and every ice crystal on the surface of the body was shining. In particular, there was a 6-meter-tall ice crystal beast that looked like a small hill, and the aura it exuded was only a little weaker than that of Shui Wuxin in the air. 60,000-year-old ice crystal beast, Ling Yu narrowed his eyes as he watched the scene. It seemed that he had to make a move. This one alone was enough to give Shui Wuxin a hard time, not to mention that there were several other 10,000-year-old beasts. If he did not make a move, those girls alone would not be able to deal with them with just one claw. With a thought, he began to form seals with his hands. Several white smoke rose, and 10 shadow clones suddenly appeared in front of the girls. Ling Yu, seeing 10 Ling Yu appear in front of them, Shui Yu exclaimed, "What kind of ability is this? Clone? So many clones." Ignoring the other party's words, Ling Yu controlled the 10 newly appeared shadow clones to run towards the 7 ice crystal beasts that exuded the aura of 10,000-year-old soul beasts not far away. After obtaining the 4th soul ring half a year ago, his physical strength had reached 30,000 kilograms. Now another half a year has passed. Although the whale pearl given to him by Ningfengzi has not been absorbed, his daily exercise and practice of swordsmanship have kept his body growing steadily. 2 weeks ago, after his physical strength reached a certain level, he automatically underwent another marrow cleansing. Now his physical strength has reached 35,000 kilograms. Each of his clones has 1/5 of his strength. With such strength, it is absolutely no problem to tear apart a 10,000-year soul beast with bare hands. Boom! The 10 shadow clones stomped their feet at the same time, like a phantom, and in just a moment they were in front of the 10,000-year ice crystal beasts. Each shadow clone began to use the 8 extremes boxing that had not been used for a long time, squatting down and holding their fists at their waists. Benquin, 10 fist shadows hit the chest of the ice crystal beast fiercely, and a sonic boom resounded in the frozen forest. The next moment, the 7 ice crystal beasts were knocked out at the same time, and ice and snow filled the air. The screams of pain emanated from the snow and fog. Ling Yu took a deep breath, and his mind flashed, and the 10 shadow clones disappeared. His strength was well controlled, and it only temporarily made these ice crystal beasts lose their ability to move, and did not cause much injury. They would be able to recover after a day or two of rest. Seeing Ling Yu showing his might again, Shui Yuer and the girls behind him showed expressions of shock again. So strong, Shui Yuer couldn't help but exclaimed, "I really want to have him." Ling Yu's shadow clone beside him couldn't help but have a few black lines on his forehead when he heard this. "Hey, little girl, your thoughts are very dangerous." Seeing Ling Yu remove the other threats, Shui Wuxin suppressed the shock in her heart and began to use all her strength to block the 60,000-year-old ice crystal beast in front of her. However, the imagined battle did not happen. The 60,000-year-old ice crystal beast roared at Shui Wuxin the moment it felt that the other brothers and sisters around it had lost their fighting power. Then, in the surprised eyes of everyone, the ice crystals on his body began to float from his body and stick to the many ice crystal beasts. In Shui Wuxin's stunned eyes, the other party turned around and controlled the ice crystal carriers to flee towards the depths of the frozen forest. Only the 4,500-year-old ice crystal beast that was controlled and unable to move was left alone, without any hesitation. "Can it be like this?" Ling Yu couldn't help but say. "Are you so determined?" The others were also confused by the other party's actions for a while, but they did not stop the actions that needed to be taken. The 10-meter-long ice phoenix continued to fly towards the target quickly. When it flew over the opponent's head, a pair of sharp wings drooped upside down, like 2 swords stabbing at the head of the ice crystal beast. Puff! A sound of piercing flesh and bones came, and the entangled, unable to move ice crystal beast trembled all over, and a shrill scream came out of its mouth. The next moment, a purple soul ring slowly floated from the opponent's body. At the same time as the soul ring rose, the ice phoenix in the air began to gradually disappear, and the figures of Shui Binger and Zhu Wu appeared in front of everyone again. Half a day later, when Ling Yu led a few people out of the frozen forest again, he turned around and looked at them, and said softly, "This time, I will just send you to the vicinity of Hanbing City. I still have my own things to do." Shui Wuxin wanted to thank him, but he knew that it would be difficult to offset the other party's help this time with just a thank you. "Don't be embarrassed." Ling Yu saw the other party's expression and realized his mood. "If you want to repay me, just kill a few more evil soul masters." "Yes." Shui Wuxin nodded to Ling Yu, and a few lights flashed in his eyes. "This person is really excellent. His strength, status, talent are all the best in the continent." Hearing Ling Yu's words, Shui Binger and others looked at each other. "Ling Yu, please come to Xianshu City when you have time. Believe me, I will never let you down," Shui Binger said to Ling Yu seriously, and the look in her eyes seemed to have made up her mind. Ling Yu was a little confused, but he nodded. Even if he went, he didn't plan to get involved in any ambiguous relationship with these girls. He already had enough female confidants. To be honest, he didn't have the slightest mood for these girls. To put it bluntly, these girls were beautiful, but compared to Danger, Erlong, Natter and senior sister Rongrong, they were not as good, or even far worse. This time, he was helping out for the sake of Jian Douluo and the Anti-Evil Soul Master Alliance. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken action. This time, he came to the far north with the intention of coming and leaving secretly, but with this incident, it seemed that this plan was going to fail. Just as Ling Yu was still thinking about how to go deeper into the far north, he sensed a strange wave in an instant. His face changed drastically, and there was even some fear in his eyes. Run! As soon as Ling Yu's expression changed, Shui Wuxin had already begun to wrap the girls with his strong soul power and headed towards the ice city, where some vague shadows could already be seen. His eyes instantly turned into a 6-pointed kaleidoscope, and the edgeless sword behind him was instantly grasped in his hand. He turned and looked at the sky behind him. 3 figures in black robes were hovering there, with a far more majestic momentum than any opponent he had encountered before, and they pressed towards Ling Yu wantonly. 3 Super Douluo. Ling Yu's eyes were extremely serious. He glanced behind the mountain not far away. There were still a large number of evil soul masters there. Although their levels were not very high, these evil soul masters actually gathered again, and they must have some plan. No wonder I didn't encounter a single evil soul master on the way to the extreme north. It turned out that they were all hiding here. Chapter 153 3 Evil Soul Masters Super Douluo. Looking at the 3 evil soul master titled Douluo above him wearing black robes but with their faces fully exposed, Ling Yu's eyes became so solemn and serious for the first time. All 3 of them were men. The man in the middle looked very honest. If you only looked at his face, you couldn't tell that he was an evil soul master. His eyes were slightly narrowed, with a smile on the corner of his mouth. His expression was unchanging, like a Maitreya Buddha. The 2 people on the left and right looked weird. One had a pointed face and a thin body, like a big monkey. The other was very handsome and looked like he was only in his 20s or 30s. But even with such a weird look, the aura of the 3 people was actually at the level of Super Douluo, and each of them was at least level 95. As soon as Ling Yu's voice fell, Shui Wuxin had already led the girls from Xianshu College to run quickly towards the direction of Hanbing City. He didn't dare to stop for a moment, because the aura of the 3 made her tremble all over, and she just wanted to surrender. She could only hope that Ling Yu could escape safely. Even though she knew that Ling Yu was very powerful, 3 strong men comparable to the level of Sword Douluo could not be dealt with by Ling Yu alone. Oh? You didn't run away. The honest man ignored Shui Wuxin and others who had escaped, but stood in the air, looking at Ling Yu's figure with a smile. If I guess correctly, you are the holy son of the Spirit Hall, right? The last time old 19 went to arrest you, but he hasn't come back until now. It seems that you are in danger. Did you kill him? Ling Yu didn't say anything, and the 4 soul rings on his body rose from his body, causing the pupils of the 3 people who saw this scene to shrink suddenly. Such a talent, ha. Is it really rare? It's simply the first time in my life. The honest man continued to look at Ling Yu with a smile. Even when he saw his talent, there was only a strange light flashing in his eyes, and his expression remained unchanged. Old 10, old 11, it seems that we must keep him this time, the man said to the man who looked like a giant monkey and another handsome man beside him. With such talent, if we let him run away again this time, the leader will punish us. The handsome man's cold face was like a paralyzed face, and he just nodded lightly. But the man with a pointed face and monkey cheeks called Old 11 had a big grin on his face, his big mouth stretched directly to the back of his ears, his teeth were as sharp as saws, and his smelly saliva flowed from the corners of his mouth. Of course, no problem, 9th brother, the holy son of the Spirit Hall, I really want to taste what he tastes like. He's so handsome, he must taste delicious. The 11th elder's pupils glowed red as he looked at Ling Yu, and combined with the other party's terrifying face, he was just like a ghost. It seems that you are the 9th, 10th and 11th elders of that damn Holy Spirit Church. Ling Yu was not as panicked as he was at the beginning when he saw the other party's appearance. He said calmly, "Why, don't you introduce yourself?" "Introduce?" The honest man smiled and said, "Of course, the 9th elder of the Holy Spirit Church, Shizuo, a title Douluo of level 96. The stern man glanced at Ling Yu and said coldly, "The 10th elder, Bingayu, a title Douluo of level 95. The sharp-nosed and monkey-faced man with a terrifying appearance said with a grin, "The 11th elder, Haoming, a title Douluo of level 95. Ling Yu nodded, grasped the long sword and pointed it at the 3 opponents, and said indifferently, "Then come on, haha." The 11th elder named Haoming laughed loudly, "That's exactly what I meant. The sky-lifting demon monkey possessed me." As soon as the words fell, a thin black monkey with a metallic sheen appeared behind the opponent. The monkey had 6 arms and looked very scary. The black breath kept coming from the opponent's body towards Ling Yu, and the disgusting fishy smell kept stimulating Ling Yu's sense of smell. The sky-lifting demon monkey. Ling Yu's pupils shrank. Could this be the mutated martial spirit of the 6-armed spirit monkey? Judging from the strength of this martial spirit, it is not much weaker than the blue lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex. He used the Mangekyo Sharingan to watch the other party's martial spirit after it possessed him. A layer of metallic luster also appeared on the surface of his body, and a strong sense of power emanated from the other party. 4 arms grew from the opponent's ribs. The 6 arms matched the other party's already strange appearance. Endless terrifying aura kept echoing in the snowy field. Judging from this aura, It is not much different from the dark demon ape titled Douluo that I met in the starred out Great Forest last time. Moreover, his mental power is also very strong. Ling Yu's face was a bit solemn. In fact, the opponent's martial soul is really strong. Basically, there is no shortcoming. Whether it is strength, speed or mental power, it is very strong. It is definitely the top among the beast martial souls. The strength of the six-armed spirit monkey itself is not very strong. It is about the same as the general powerful demon ape. It can only be regarded as a high-level soul beast. But for some reason, after the opponent's martial soul mutated, the strength of the martial soul is close to the real dragon martial soul of the blue lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex. The level of the martial soul has been improved by a lot. 2 yellow, 2 purple and 5 black 9 soul rings emerged from the opponent's body. Seeing this scene, Ling Yu's eyes suddenly lit up. Number 100,000 year soul ring? It seems that the opponent's status is not as high as the dark demon ape soul master I met last time. As if he understood the surprise in Ling Yu's eyes, Hao Ming's expression became very sinister. Boy, are you in a hurry to die? After saying that, the 6th soul ring on his body lit up with black light. 6th soul skill, sky lifting palm. His 6 arms were raised high behind his back like one iron, like a lotus in full bloom. The next moment, in Ling Yu's stunned eyes, the opponent's 6 arms began to rapidly enlarge, and each palm lit up with a black gold light, and the evil aura enveloped the opponent's palms. Boom! The huge movement in the air squeezed and burst the surrounding air, and 6 5-meter-long palms slapped towards Ling Yu. Ling Yu looked up at the 6 palms above his head that completely covered every direction around him. In addition, because of the shining black gold light on the opponent's palms, he actually felt that his body was unusually heavy. It actually has gravity attributes. He looked at the attack above his head in astonishment, and the heavy and strong aura made him frown. HMPH, Ling Yu raised a cold arc at the corner of his mouth. If it was before, this move would be really hard to dodge. But now, Susanoo, 3rd form, Ling Yu's eyes were sharp, red light flashed in his eyes, and a huge purple skeleton rose from his body. Then, in the surprised eyes of the other 3, it began to change rapidly. First, muscle tissue began to emerge on the skeleton, allowing the skeleton giant that was more than 10 meters tall to quickly turn into a humanoid giant, directly raising the body to a height of 20 meters. Then, a heavy purple armor instantly appeared on the purple giant's body and wrapped the opponent's whole body. Golden flames began to rise from the mouth, nose and eyes of the armored giant, once again raising the size of Susanoo to a height of nearly 40 meters. Looking at the armored giant on Ling Yu's body that looked like a small mountain, the 3 could no longer maintain their original expressions. They all showed horrified eyes and serious looks. Now I finally know why you killed old 19. Shizuo looked at the Susanoo on Ling Yu's body, and the smile on his face seemed a little stiff at this moment. He could feel the powerful aura of the armored giant that wrapped him. He ignored the man's words. Ling Yu crossed his arms and controlled the purple giant to raise the purple shield on his left hand to block upwards. Susanoo's 3rd form, unless the title Douluo of the Super Douluo level activates the martial soul true body and uses soul skills above the 8th soul skill, otherwise Ling Yu can be sure that they can't break Susanoo's defense at all. Chapter 154 Attack at the same time? 6 huge palms slapped Ling Yu, but Susanoo, which completely covered him, raised its purple shield in its left hand to block it. Boom! The roar continued, snowflakes flew everywhere, and the ground outside the far north began to shake continuously under the confrontation between the 2 sides, causing several avalanches. Hao Ming grinned, and his sharp teeth kept making sharp sounds like creaking and rubbing in his mouth. Looking at Ling Yu's unharmed appearance, and the purple giant beside him, his eyes flashed red, and murderous intent filled the air. I don't believe it. His 6 arms swung back, and the 7th soul ring on his body lit up. 7th soul skill, martial soul true body. As the black light flashed on the soul ring, Hao Ming's thin body began to rapidly enlarge, and black hair began to grow all over his body. The big mouth that stretched to the back of his ears became even more ferocious and terrifying. In just a moment, Hao Ming's body had risen to a height of 10 meters. Ling Yu looked at Hao Ming, who had completely transformed into a black gorilla after using his martial soul's true body, and his eyes flashed with seriousness. Although he had never heard of the martial soul of the sky-lifting demon monkey, judging from the aura and appearance of Hao Ming's martial soul, it should have evolved from the 6-armed spirit monkey. This powerful beast martial soul, after opening the martial soul's true body, is much stronger than the one he encountered last time in the Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect. What's more, the opponent's level has also reached the 95th level of Super Douluo, a title Douluo level Soul Master, and the gap between each level is huge. Ling Yu narrowed his eyes slightly, and the edgeless sword in his hand emitted a purple light. Then the long sword disappeared from his hand and turned into a giant sword of 20 to 30 meters long held in Susanu's hand. 8th Soul Skill, Sky-Lifting Cannon. Hao Ming raised his 6 huge arms. Under the illumination of the soul ring, the 6 arms were centered on the opponent's chest and formed a 6-pointed star posture. Black and gold light continued to gather from his arms, forming a huge black and gold energy ball in front of his chest. Die, Hao Ming roared, waving his 6 arms and throwing the energy ball towards Ling Yu. The energy ball was very fast, and the terrifying aura emanating from it made Ling Yu's face change. My body is like a sword, indestructible, Ling Yu shouted in a low voice, and the blade of the Wu Fang sword began to emit purple and gold light. It enveloped Susanu and his body. During this period of training, Ling Yu never put down his swordsmanship every day. Every time he used this move, his understanding of this swordsmanship became deeper. This is because Wu Fang used his own sword hard and Wu Fang sword to resonate, and then shown the attributes of the Wu Fang sword, a divine weapon, on the user, so that the user's defense and attack can be blessed to a certain extent by the attributes of the Wu Fang sword, the indestructible and extremely sharp abilities. Of course, because his sword cultivation has not reached the level of Wu Fang, his understanding of this move is not as deep as Wu Fang's, so he can only play 10% of the effect of Wu Fang using this move. However, even if it is 10% effective, it is enough to greatly enhance Ling Yu's current defense. With a flashing of purple gold light, Susanu's already sturdy and tall body became even more dazzling. Ling Yu looked at the attack direction of the energy ball, and with a thought, he controlled Susanu to stand the Wu Fang sword in front of the shield, facing the energy ball rushing down from the air, and collided with it. Boom! A huge sound resounded in the extreme north, and countless soul beasts were startled by this huge energy wave and began to flee in all directions, but there were also 3 figures, running towards here quickly. The snow mountain was turbulent, and the majestic avalanche began to flow here. This natural disaster scene shocked the guards of Hanbing City and the 2 titled Douluo not far away. Shui Wuxin and others who had already escaped to the Ice City not far away were also shaken by this huge wave. The girls around them turned pale under this huge wave of energy. Fortunately, these people left in time. Otherwise, the aftermath of this energy alone would be enough to cause serious damage to these Xianshu women's group members. Pulling back to the periphery of the far north, Shi Xiao and Bingyu in the air looked at this scene with solemn faces. Even Shi Xiao, a titled Douluo with the posture of Maitreya Buddha, had put away the smile on his face and looked at this incredible scene with wide eyes. The dust dispersed, the snowflakes fell, and the collision position was revealed in front of everyone. A large pit with a diameter of more than 200 meters appeared there, and a huge figure in slightly damaged armor appeared in the huge pit. Ling Yu exhaled and looked at Hao Ming not far away with sharp eyes. Seeing the disbelief and horror in the other's eyes, he did not show any complacency. Family members know their own business. Although Susanu is very strong and his own abilities are not bad, his current soul power is only comparable to that of a soul saint, which still limits his endurance. The explosive power is enough, but the endurance is not good. Just defending the opponent's 8th soul skill has consumed nearly 40% of his soul power. However, judging from the opponent's appearance, the power of the 8th soul skill has increased a lot in the form of the martial soul, but it also consumes a lot of money for Hao Ming. Such a soul skill can only be used a few times, even with the strength of the opponent's 95th level Super Douluo, and then his soul power will be exhausted. How is this possible? Hao Ming looked at Ling Yu in shock. What on earth is this kid's side? It's so hard. Such a defense can be compared with that old turtle. Shi Xiao and Bingyu on the side also looked solemn, and then the 2 looked at each other and saw the determination in each other's eyes. Old 11, attack together, don't delay, otherwise it will be difficult to kill him after the opponent's support comes, Shi Xiao shouted to Hao Ming. After seeing Ling Yu's strength, the 3 of them were shocked by his talent, but now they must attack at the same time, otherwise Hao Ming alone will definitely not be able to do anything to the opponent in a short time. Moreover, they are evil soul masters, and there is no so-called justice and morality. As long as the target can be killed, no matter what means are used, it is worth it. Hearing Shi Xiao's words, Hao Ming's face paused, but he did not object. He just looked at Ling Yu with murderous eyes, as if he was looking at a dead person. If the three Super Douluos attack, no matter how strong Ling Yu is, he will definitely fall here. Ling Yu's face is also very serious, and the kaleidoscope-riding eyes in his eyes have been observing the flow of soul power in the bodies of the three people. Seeing that the soul power in Shi Xiao and Bing Yu's bodies began to fluctuate, he knew that the two of them were also going to attack. Possessed by the mad blood demon dragon, Ling Yu watched Shi Xiao regain his charitable smile, but behind him appeared a tall red demon dragon. The demon dragon had no wings, but its blood-red scales and golden eyes made the terrifying aura of this martial soul even more powerful than Hao Ming's sky-lifting demon monkey. Very strong. This Shi Xiao is simply a smiling tiger. Ling Yu looked at the red scales gradually emerging on the surface of the other party's body, and his eyes could not help but flash. Just looking at this martial soul and feeling the breath of this martial soul, the bloody and evil aura made him frown. It was really that the ferocity of this martial soul was definitely the strongest he had ever seen. 9 soul rings, 1 yellow, 3 purple, 4 black and 1 red, rose from the other party's body. Ling Yu looked at this scene and his face changed drastically. Not only did he have a 100,000-year soul ring, but the second soul ring was also 1,000-year-old. With such strength, only Natter could suppress him at the same level. Sure enough, this martial soul is weird. Mad Blood Demon Dragon? Another martial soul I haven't heard of. Just when Ling Yu was surprised by Shi Xiao's strength, Bing Yu beside him also began to summon martial souls. He waved his right hand, and a dark blue longsword appeared in his hand. The shape of the longsword was very gorgeous, with a blue rose on the hilt, but the only drawback was that there were dense black lines wrapped around the sword, making the sword look both beautiful and evil. Very contradictory. Sword of Dark Judgment, Bing Yu murmured in a low voice, causing Ling Yu's pupils to shrink when he heard this. Judgment. Chapter 155 Behead. Looking at the longsword in Bing Yu's hand, Ling Yu asked the sword spirit in his heart, Wu Feng, have you ever seen this martial soul? Why do I feel a strong threat from this sword? Wu Feng also looked over at this time, and his tone was a little surprised. Of course I have seen it. Oh, Ling Yu's eyes lit up. It is true that you can learn until you die. It is also good for Wu Feng to live so long. The original name of this sword is the Sword of Judgment. This martial soul is very powerful, and it can even be compared with the 6-winged angel of your Wuhan Hall, Wu Feng said seriously. Because these two martial souls are related to the God Realm, Ling Yu's face changed. Same as the 6-winged angel? Why is there no record of it in the Wuhan Hall? Wu Feng looked at Ling Yu's expression and whispered, in fact, it's not your fault that you don't understand this martial soul, because this god has fallen. Fallen? Wu Feng continued, yes, he has fallen. He fell during the war in the God Realm. I told you that the law of judgment is the law of the Azure God, representing the absolute justice of the God Realm, but this law also has branches. The God of Judgment was a first-level god in the God Realm back then. His strength was the number 1 under the God King at that time. It was because he became a god with the help of the Azure God, and the law he comprehended was the law of killing. Wu Feng sighed. The rank of this law is very high. It can be said that it is second only to the laws of the 5 God Kings in the God Realm. But because of this, the mind of this God of Judgment is full of murderous intent, and it is very easy to lose reason. In the end, he and the opponent's Light Dragon King died together in the war in the God Realm. It can be said to be brilliant, and this person's martial spirit is inherited from the God of Judgment. Once this martial spirit is awakened, I estimate that this person's innate soul power is at least level 20, which is definitely comparable to that little girl in Xiandao City. But now the other party is willing to fall and be infected by the breath of the abyss. After hearing Wu Feng's introduction, Ling Yu finally understood why this 10th elder of the Holy Spirit Church made him feel uncomfortable. This is the first time Ling Yu has seen a person who can be compared with Jin Ringsu in terms of talent alone, and now this person is the strength of a titled Douluo. No wonder even Shi Xiao on the side, his aura is not as threatening as Bing Yu to Ling Yu. But you also said that the God of Judgment had fallen during the Battle of the God Realm. Could it be that this person is his descendant? Ling Yu asked Wu Feng. Wu Feng thought for a while and said, it's possible, but it's also possible that the other party got something related to the God of Judgment, which caused his martial soul to mutate. But no matter what the other party is, this person is definitely very strong. Don't underestimate him. With this martial soul, even if the other party faces a 97 level title Douluo, He can fight, Ling Yu nodded solemnly, looking at the 2 yellow, 1 purple, 5 black and 1 red soul rings that appeared on Yu in the air. This time, his expression did not change. After all, he knew the other party's martial soul information, so it was not surprising that there was such a soul ring ratio. Together, we can't let this survive. Once this biggest threat is eliminated, the mission assigned to us by the leader will be completed. Shizuo glanced at Yu beside him, with a strong fear in his eyes. Haoming and Yu both nodded, and began to exude the momentum of the title Douluo without reservation. Here it comes. Ling Yu looked at the soul power flowing in the bodies of the 3 people and pursed his lips tightly. A few gleams flashed in his eyes, and he watched the 3 people in the air begin to release their soul skills. Haoming's 9th black soul ring lit up and was put on his body. 9th soul skill, move mountains. His body was shining with black and gold light, and his 6 arms began to gradually intersect and merge. In just a breath of time, his 6 arms transformed into 2 huge arms that were half the size of his body. Then, his 2 huge arms opened their 10 fingers and pointed at Ling Yu. An energy ball that was several times larger and more terrifying than before began to emerge in his palm. 9th soul skill, bloodstained sky. Shizuo still maintained a charitable smile on his face, but this smile was particularly terrifying when combined with the other party's extremely evil aura. The only red soul ring on his body lit up, and a huge red dragon appeared above his head. The dragon was 30 meters long, and a terrifying aura continued to emanate from his body. A bunch of bloody eyes looked at Ling Yu, as if they were going to devour him the next moment. 8th soul skill, Judgment Holy Sword. Yu held the long sword in his hand, and a black soul ring of 10,000 years appeared on his body. A strange black flame began to burn on the sword. When he saw the flame for the first time, Ling Yu's face was a little strange, because this flame was somewhat similar to Amaterasu, but this flame did not have a fierce temperature, but had a kind of cold feeling. The moment he felt the flame on the long sword, Ling Yu actually got goosebumps all over his body. The mental power in his mind kept stimulating him, reminding him that this soul skill was very dangerous. Lock skill? And Ling Yu said with deep eyes, it is a soul skill that attacks the soul. 4 soul rings rose on his body, and the 3rd and 1st soul rings echoed each other. Die? Haoming laughed at Ling Yu. Ha ha ha, turn into ashes. As soon as the voice fell, the black and gold energy ball in his hand rushed back to Ling Yu. At the same time, the red dragon above Shizuo's head rushed back to Ling Yu quickly, and the speed was so fast that a red mark flashed in the air. Yu looked indifferent and waved the long sword in his hand at Ling Yu expressionlessly. A black sword light rushed towards him like lightning. Stop! At the moment when the soul skill was activated, Jian Douluo and Thunder Douluo rushed from Handing City at the same time. However, when Shenzhen saw this scene, his eyes were bloodshot. Yu Yuanzhen, who was standing beside him, also had a ferocious face and rushed there at full speed. Ling Yu looked at the 3 soul skills rushing towards him. He had been ready for it for a long time and showed a strange smile on his face. The 3 people who saw this scene felt bad at the same time. Soul bone skill, 3-color divine light. The 3rd soul skill, demonization. The 1st soul skill, golden eyes and angry eyes. Under the puzzled eyes of everyone, Ling Yu activated the soul skill again. At the same time, a black flame ignited from the longsword in Susanu's hand. And the purple giant raised the longsword and made a starting gesture. Not good. Shizuo and Yu's faces changed drastically, but they were still a step too late. As a 3-color light emanated from Ling Yu's eye sockets, the 3 terrifying auras in the air disappeared at the same time, and then in an instant, a golden light shone on the 3 people. My body is like a sword, sharp as a sword, Ling Yu suddenly shouted, and a purple gold light emerged from the Wu-Fang sword, making the attack that was already ready to be launched even more terrifying. It's not over yet. Ling Yu's face was a little ferocious, and the soul core in his Danshin began to rotate rapidly, and lightning flashed on his body. Although the power of the 2nd martial soul is limited, it can increase the speed and power of the Wu-Fang sword by 1 point. In this situation, even a 1-point increase is effective. A flash of lightning covered the Wu-Fang sword from his body. The next moment, Susanu's huge body raised the long sword in his hand, and the terrifying energy continued to condense on the sword, making the 3-titled Douluo of the evil soul master not far away and the sword Douluo and Thunder Douluo who rushed over not far away all look horrified at the same time. Heavenly sword, with Ling Yu's order, golden flames emerged from the mouth and nose of Susanu, and holding a huge sword without a front, It slashed directly at Hao Ming. Ling Yu looked at the scene with a firm look in his eyes. In fact, compared to Hao Ming, he wanted to use this trick on Bingayu more. After all, his talent was too strong, and he was also related to Divine Car. He had to be on guard. But he also knew that even if the opponent took this blow, the damage caused would be limited, so he decisively chose Hao Ming, the weakest of the three. As long as he could seriously injure the opponent, plus the three figures in the extreme north who were rushing here quickly as Wu Fang reminded him, plus Chen Zin and Yu Yuanzhen behind him, the chance of leaving these three behind was very high. The long sword slashed at Hao Ming in his horrified eyes. The golden eyes were angry. This rule-based soul skill, as long as the soul master who was irradiated could not escape the fate of being in prison no matter how strong he was. Now, except for their thoughts, their physical bodies and mental powers were all imprisoned. Cut, Ling Yu suddenly shouted, his face extremely pale. The huge consumption made his body completely hollow. Boom. A loud noise resounded under Ling Yu's feet, and a huge sword mark spread directly from his feet for a full kilometer. Wherever it passed, whether it was a snowy mountain or something else, it was all cut open, and the incision was extremely smooth. Hao Ming let out a shrill scream. A huge scar extended from his neck to his hip bone, blood, flesh, organs, all exposed. Endless blood dripped from the air, and some organ fragments were mixed in it. At this time, Sword Douluo, Thunder Douluo and the three figures from the far north came to Ling Yu's side at the same time, looking at this scene with extremely strange expressions. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 156 Snow Emperor. Hao Ming let out a shrill roar, and blood and pieces of flesh on his body kept falling from the air, looking extremely miserable. Ling Yu looked at the three figures that had just appeared with different eyes, with a bit of surprise on his face. The three figures were one person and two beasts. One was a scorpion with a body length of nearly 1.5 meters. The scorpion was ice white and emerald green, and the aura it exuded was even stronger than Jian Douluo. Another was a huge snow ape with a body length of nearly 100 meters. Its huge body was like a small mountain. A pair of bright eyes looked at the scene in front of it with a bit of disbelief. The last one was a beautiful woman. The woman was wearing a white long dress, with long white hair hanging down from the back of her head to her feet. Her sky blue eyes were ethereal and transparent, as if she could see through everything in the world. Her slender body was flawless. Although the white long dress had no decoration, it made her look so noble and stunning. Meticulous, like a plum blossom in the winter snow, outstanding and proud of the snow and frost. Ling Yu looked at the woman and the emerald green scorpion in astonishment, and a familiar feeling came over him. At this moment, the woman's eyes also looked in Ling Yu's direction, looking at the enlarged version of the edgeless sword held in Susanu's hand, and a touch of nostalgia and gentleness appeared on her cold face. Chen Zin and Yu Yuanzhen widened their eyes and looked at Hao Ming, who had gradually sealed his blood vessels and meridians with his soul power not far away. The two looked at each other, and each other's eyes were filled with inexplicable horror. You deserve to die? Hao Ming's face was pale, and he covered the wound on his chest that was still bleeding with his hands. His sharp-nosed and monkey-faced face became even more ferocious, and the aura of a level 95 Super Douluo became extremely weak at this moment. He looked at Ling Yu with his eyes blazing with murderous intent, trying to mobilize his soul power and soul skills, but he just tried to move, and the injury on his chest instantly became more serious, forcing him to stop and stare at Ling Yu with a pair of bloodshot eyes, wishing to cut him into pieces with his eyes. Shizuo and Bingyu also rushed to Hao Ming's side at this time, looking at the 11th elder of the Holy Spirit Church. Half an hour ago, he was still arrogant, but now he was so weak that even Soul Douluo might not be able to compete with him. I was careless. Shizuo's expression became extremely solemn. I didn't expect the soul skills of this son of the spirit hall to be so weird, eliminating the effects of soul skills, and also having golden eyes and angry eyes, the first control skill on the continent. His face no longer had the smile of Maitreya Buddha before, but was filled with murderous intent even stronger than Hao Ming. Why didn't the damn guy report the effect of this person's soul skills to us last time, but just reminded us to be careful? Bingayu also looked at Ling Yu's thin figure kneeling on one knee with a cold expression. He had been silent all this time, but now the corner of his mouth moved slightly, and he raised a strange smile. This made Ling Yu a little confused for a while. What's wrong with this kid? He could even laugh at this time. Didn't you see that the 3 overlords of the far north and the 2 titled Douluo of the anti-evil Soul Master Alliance have arrived? With only the 3 of you titled Douluo and the hundreds of evil Soul Masters who are mostly Soul Masters hidden behind the snow mountain, how can you resist their attack? Shizuo didn't notice the strange smile on Bingayu's face. He looked at the 3 figures of 2 beasts and 1 person on the other side with a serious look in his eyes. His pupils full of dissatisfaction with murderous intent seemed to have made up their minds. I didn't expect you 3 to come. It seems that the damage I caused you last time has almost healed. Shizuo suddenly smiled at the 3 figures and said, "What? Do you feel confident enough to fight against us? Or do you think that with the joining of these 2 people from the Anti-Evil Spirit Master Alliance, you can defeat us?" Chen Xin looked at the other party solemnly, holding the 7 killing sword in his hand, and the sharp sword energy continued to surround him. Yu Yuan's Hun's body also emitted bursts of thunderous roars. Blue dragon scales began to appear on the back of his hands and neck, and a pair of black eyes gradually turned into vertical pupils. The woman in a white dress slowly floated from the air to Ling Yu's side, ignoring Shizuo's sarcasm, as if she didn't care about him at all. Ling Yu also stared closely at the figure that he had seen in Wu Feng's memory. However, compared to the appearance in his memory, the other party at this time had undoubtedly grown into a graceful and beautiful lady. With such a perfect figure and appearance, apart from Nader and Danger, there was also Jin Ringsu, who had some problems in Xiandao City. This was the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. "Do you know Wu Feng?" The woman's voice was emotionless, but it was as clear and crisp as a lark. Her pair of blue eyes looked at Ling Yu's body and looked at him carefully. Ling Yu nodded gently, but in his heart he kept sending signals to Wu Feng's sword spirit. "Hey, this is the little girl you taught swordsmanship to. Now she is not a little girl anymore." Hearing Ling Yu's voice, Wu Feng sighed. "Yes, the little girl has grown up now, and her cultivation has reached the level of 600,000 years. With such strength, she can completely compete with a human soul master's ultimate Douluo. Even if she can't beat him, she can still fight head-on." Ling Yu looked at the woman in front of him in disbelief, and exclaimed in his heart, "You mean his current strength can be compared with Jin Daoliu?" Wu Feng shook his head. "He definitely can't beat him head-on, but it's impossible for the other party to kill him. It can only be said that he is stronger than a 98th level title Douluo, but weaker than a 99th level title Douluo." At the level of the sword of the 2, hearing Wu Feng's words, even though Ling Yu was prepared, he couldn't help but take a breath. In addition to Jin Daoliu and Danger, there is also Di Don, who he met in the Xingdao Great Forest last time. This is the 4th creature he has seen with the strength of the 99th level ultimate Douluo, and it is also such a beautiful soul beast. Seeing Ling Yu nod, the cold face of the woman finally showed a slight fluctuation, and a beautiful smile appeared on the corner of her mouth, which attracted Ling Yu, who saw this scene. "It seems that you have been recognized by the master," the woman said softly. "In this case, you can call me senior sister." Although I am a soul beast, Ling Yu was a little stunned when he heard the other party's words. Senior sister? Well, that's right. Although he didn't formally become a disciple, Wu Feng was a teacher and friend in his heart, like an elder. Ling Yu nodded a little stiffly, and the beautiful smile on the face of the other party who saw this scene became more intense, as if the surrounding light was attracted by the woman's smile. "My name is Zhu Di," the woman said to Ling Yu. Ling Yu nodded, raised his slightly pale cheek and said, "My name is Ling Yu." Chapter 157 Natural Disaster. After the 2 finished introducing themselves, a crisp sound suddenly came from behind the woman. Ling Yu bent his head and looked, his eyes somewhat confused. It was the good-looking scorpion. "Zuir, you said he was your junior brother." The emerald green scorpion walked to the side of the 2, and the aura of a fierce beast was not concealed at all. "Then he is not." Zhu Di nodded, without saying anything else, just glanced at Ling Yu again, and then turned to look at Hao Ming and the other 2. The emerald green scorpion opened his eyes and looked at Ling Yu inexplicably. "Your name is Ling Yu, right? Since you're Zuir's junior brother, you can call me Bing Di from now on." Ling Yu nodded in astonishment. For some reason, he could actually feel the strong arrogance of the other party. "The sins you have committed in the extreme north during this period of time, today is the time to settle accounts," Zhu Di said in a cold voice without any emotion. Listening to the other party's words, Shizuo laughed a few times. "Sin, our Holy Spirit Church is for the peace of the continent, For the future of the continent. For this purpose, all sacrifices are worthwhile and necessary. You mortals don't understand our approach at all. He opened his hands with a crazy expression. Do you know what we are going to do? Do you know what we are going to do? You don't know anything, but just choose to hunt us down. Do you know what your behavior will turn this continent into? Chen Xin landed from the air to Ling Yu's side, stretched out his hand and pressed on his shoulder, and used his soul power to sense his physical condition. After feeling that there was no problem with his body, he nodded to Ling Yu, and then looked at Shi Xiao, who was still talking nonsense. For peace, Chen Xin raised his eyebrows. Is it necessary to kill powerless civilians? Doing so much killing is necessary in your eyes? His eyes became fierce. You are worse than dogs, come and die? Yu Yuanzhen also came to Ling Yu's side, looked at him with an inexplicable look, and couldn't help but sigh in his heart that Erlong's vision was really good. However, after hearing Shi Xiao's words, he also said with bloodshot eyes, if you don't have helpers, you will die this time. Hao Ming had recovered some of his injuries with the help of Shi Xiao and Bingyu. It must be said that at the level of titled Douluo, as long as their heads are not chopped off or their hearts are blown up, it is basically difficult for them to die. Their vitality is extremely strong. He opened his mouth wide. Ha, Brother Nine, why are you talking nonsense to them? The Holy Spirit Church is the eternal truth. The light of the Holy Spirit will one day illuminate the entire continent. Shi Xiao nodded, and chose not to say more. Instead, he waved his hand, and a black light instantly flew from his arm to the snow-capped mountains on both sides. This is our first gift to you. Shi Xiao smiled grimly. I hope you like it. After that, he took Hao Ming and Bingyu behind the two of them and flew towards the sky. Seeing the figures of the three people, Bingyu shouted, where are you running? As soon as she finished speaking, she was about to get up and chase them, but Zhu Di stretched out her hand to stop her. Ling Yu opened the golden phoenix wings behind him, and a golden light quickly shone on his body. His body had recovered to its best condition in a breath. The main Gekkai of Sharingan opened instantly, and he looked at both sides intently. At the beginning, he was wondering why there were so many evil soul masters hiding here. Could it be that they were going to attack Hanbing City? But seeing the appearance of the other three, and for some reason, he always felt that at this time, the aura of these hundreds of evil soul masters, most of whom were great soul masters and soul masters, was disappearing quickly. Chen Xin and Yu Yuanzhen also wanted to chase after the three, but Ling Yu suddenly shouted, go, run back. After saying that, he turned around and opened his external soul bone, flying at full speed towards the direction of the ice city in the sky. At this time, the Snow Emperor also noticed something. His pupils shrank, and his eyes were full of disbelief. Binger, 8 Tai, fly to the city behind with all your strength, quickly. As soon as the voice fell, the huge snow ape followed behind the Ice Emperor and the Snow Emperor and flew towards the city not far away. Chen Xin and Yu Yuanzhen had already rushed to Ling Yu's side at the moment Ling Yu's voice fell, and took him, who was slower, to fly towards the ice city. At this time, everyone noticed a terrifying wave emerging behind them, and a huge energy wave appeared from behind the snow mountain. The moment they felt this fluctuation, Chen Xin and Yu Yuanzhen's faces changed drastically, their eyes full of anger. Boom, boom, boom. Just when they had quickly reached the foot of Hanbing City, the two tall snow-capped mountains behind them collapsed with a continuous roar. Endless snow waves and huge rocks flew, rushing towards the direction of Hanbing City. A natural disaster-like scene happened in front of everyone. Damn it, Ling Yu's face was extremely ugly, his eyes were full of bloodshot, and his angry eyes seemed to be burning with flames. They actually sacrificed hundreds of nearly 1,000 soul masters to blow up the two snow-capped mountains thousands of meters high on the outermost side of the far north. They want to bury Hanbing City alive. Chen Xin and Yu Yuanzhen also knew the other party's means at this time. When they first arrived, the aura of those evil soul masters was hidden for some reason, and the aura was very weak, so they didn't pay much attention. They didn't expect them to do such a thing. This is nearly 1,000 soul masters. Are their foundations gone? Such a huge number of soul masters, self-destructing together, is simply insane. How many soul masters are there in the entire Douluo continent? At most, there are only a few 100,000. But what is happening in front of their eyes at this moment? These evil soul masters actually chose to let hundreds of soul masters self-destruct. What do they want to do? Just to destroy the ice city? If so, why choose this method? Wouldn't it be better and more convenient to use several super Douluos to attack together? No, That's not right. Ling Yu's face turned pale. They want to cause more killings. They want to track something, or in other words, they want to restore the strength of some creature. If hundreds of soul masters are added to their plan to use these two collapsed snow mountains to destroy the ice city, hundreds of thousands of people and soul masters in the city will all die. Such a natural disaster, even a titled Douluo can't survive. They need vitality, blood, and souls. Chapter 158 Method. Ling Yu turned to look at the Snow Emperor and the Ice Emperor, and said with a serious look, "Snow Emperor, your control over ice and snow is unmatched on the continent. Can you stop these snow waves in front of you? You don't need to stop other rocks, you just need to stop these snow waves." Hearing Ling Yu's orders at this time, Chen Xin and Yu Yuanzhen did not speak. The Snow Emperor was in a good mood as Ling Yu was her junior brother, so naturally she had no objection. The Ice Emperor on the side also knew the relationship between the Snow Emperor and the Edgeless Sword very well, and had no problem with it. In addition, she was surprised to see Ling Yu severely injure a titled Douluo on the other side with one sword, so she naturally did not object. But the Titan Snow Demon King on the side, Atai, was a little dissatisfied. Because of the humans' one hunting of soul beasts, Atai, as one of the three overlords of the far north, has a talent that is not inferior to that of the Titan giant ape. At the same level, even the Ice Emperor is not as strong as him. Seeing Ling Yu giving orders to the Snow Emperor, he said with some dissatisfaction, "Boy, watch your tone. What qualifications do you have to give orders to the Snow Emperor? You human soul masters have never stopped hunting soul beasts for hundreds of thousands of years. How many soul beasts have been destroyed? In my eyes, there is no difference between you and the evil soul master just now." When Chen Xin heard what the other party said, he looked up. At a glance, Atai, who was dozens of meters tall, stood under the ice city. His huge body was comparable to the wall of the ice city, which was extremely terrifying. Even the Titan giant ape and the sky blue bull python in the starred out great forest were not as big as this soul beast. Yu Yuanzhen was also carefully looking at the three soul beasts in front of him. Just now, time was tight and he didn't look at these three carefully. After carefully feeling them now, he found that the aura of each of these three was not weaker than his, which made him a little surprised. You know, he is a real dragon martial soul like the blue lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex, and his soul power has reached level 95. Even Chen Xin is not weak, but the strength of each of these three is not weaker than him, especially the good-looking scorpion and the foul-looking woman, which makes him feel a little invincible. When did Ling Yu know these soul beasts? Why didn't I hear her long mention them? Yu Yuanzhen looked at Ling Yu with some curiosity, but he knew that now was not the time to ask questions. There was a natural disaster like landslide rushing towards them. If one of them was not solved well, hundreds of thousands of lives in Handing City would be finished. As for the human soul masters hunting soul beasts, I can only say that not every human soul master is willing to do so. Ling Yu explained seriously, this world has rules. These rules limit the way of life of the creatures in this world and determine the upper limit of the creatures. He stared at the Titan Snow Demon King and said sincerely, and the person who set this rule is God. Human power cannot change this fact. If you want to change it, you can only become a stronger God than them. You can hate humans or blame us, but this is the rule of this world. There is always someone who has to change it. Maybe it's you, maybe it's me, maybe it's our descendants. But it is undeniable that these things have nothing to do with those powerless civilians, so, now I'm not ordering, but begging, hoping that you can help. In return, I will agree to a request within your ability. How about it? Atai stared at Ling Yu for a few times, then sprayed two white eyes from his nose, turned his head and stopped talking. Even if he was stubborn, the talent and strength of the human youth in front of him were simply appalling. At this age, he could actually seriously injure a super Douluo. Even if the opponent was careless, coupled with Ling Yu's unexpected spirit skill sneak attack, the process is sometimes not so important. What is important is the result. Zudi looked at Ling Yu with shining eyes. She felt that this newly recognized junior brother was different from all the humans she had seen in the past hundreds of thousands of years, and had a higher pursuit. Moreover, as a snow elf born and raised, she was very sensitive to whether a person was lying. She could sincerely feel that what the other party said just now was from the heart, and he really wanted to change this twisted rule. Okay, Zudi said softly, I will work with Avenger and Atai. The three of us will work together to stop the avalanche, but the other rocks are beyond my ability. Ling Yu smiled, that's enough. Thank you very much for your help." After speaking, he turned his head to look at Douluo and Douluo behind him. "Two seniors, I have a request." Chenzin waved his hand and said, "If you have anything to say, please tell me now. It's already this time. As long as you really have a way, Lao Long and I will definitely help you with all our strength." Ling Yu nodded heavily and nodded slightly to Yu Yuan's hand on the side. "In a moment, please input your soul power into my body without reservation. Don't worry that I can't bear it. I will do my best to stop this disaster. Success or failure depends on this one move." Chenzin and Yu Yuan's hand nodded without hesitation. Although they were both very powerful, they could protect themselves in the face of such a natural disaster, but they had no way to solve it. "Okay. Let's start now." Hearing Chenzin's words, Ling Yu nodded again, and then turned his back to the two of them. The two did not speak, but stretched out their hands and pressed on Ling Yu's shoulders, inputting the soul power belonging to the title Douluo into Ling Yu's body without reservation. Ling Yu held his sword without a blade in his hand, activated his devouring ability, and the soul core and dragon scales in his body began to operate at the same time, rapidly converting the soul power of the two title Douluo into energy suitable for him. Buzz! Ling Yu clenched his teeth tightly, his cheeks slightly pale. "Sure enough, even if my physical strength is now comparable to that of a title Douluo, the soul power output of the two title Douluo is still at great pressure," Ling Yu thought secretly, but because he was confident in his body's ability to recover, he was not too worried. Boom! The rocks and avalanches in front of him were mixed, and the two snow-capped mountains had completely collapsed and rushed towards the direction of Hanbin City. Everything he saw was a natural disaster. In less than a minute, Ling Yu felt that his body was already saturated and even gradually expanded. He signaled to the two title Douluo behind him whose breath was a little disordered. And then the two of them withdrew their hands at the same time, looking at the young man in front of them with firm eyes. Ling Yu nodded to the Snow Emperor on the side, and then the woman's white feet, which were not covered at all, lightly tapped and her body floated into the air. The Ice Emperor and a tie behind her also followed the Snow Emperor and flew into the sky. "Do it!" the Snow Emperor shouted, and the two beasts attacked the front at the same time. Boom! 3 soul auras belonging to soul beasts of more than 100,000 years were wandering around the periphery of the extreme north. Ling Yu glanced sideways and found that the walls of Hanbin City were full of people, most of whom were soul masters and soldiers. They were panicked and terrified. Facing such a natural disaster, human power was too small. It can only be said that the strategy of these evil soul masters was really good. They must have discovered the core location of the 2 snow mountains. Then hundreds of low-level evil soul masters were distributed around. Once they exploded at the same time, the turmoil they could cause would definitely be stronger than the self-explosion of a title Douluo. Chapter 159 Ambition. The dense crowds of people on the city wall were quite chaotic. Even the well-trained soldiers had no intention to manage the order at this time. They could only watch this scene happen, hoping that the 2 title Douluo below the city wall could find a way to solve this problem. The 3 people of Zudi began to show icy white soul power. The 3 of them stretched out their hands to the front at the same time. The next moment, the avalanche that rushed towards the city wall fiercely seemed to be blocked by a wall and stopped instantly. Zudi's pupils flashed with icy blue light. She pushed with both hands lightly, and the snowflakes mixed with rocks were quickly pulled away by her, as if they were cut apart by a long sword from the middle, and rushed towards the 2 sides of the ice city. Seeing this, Ling Yu also took action immediately. He formed seals with both hands on his chest. Bang! Bang! Continuous white smoke rose from his side, and in an instant, hundreds of shadow clones that looked exactly like Ling Yu appeared under the ice city. Seeing this scene, the pupils of Jian Douluo and Leiting Douluo in the back suddenly shrank. Many figures on the wall behind also watched this scene in disbelief. Shui Wuxin appeared on the wall with the Shianshu girl group. Looking at Ling Yu who was showing off his skills in front, several people's eyes flashed with brilliance. Ling Yu moved his mind, and hundreds of shadow clones quickly formed seals in front of their chests at the same time. Earth Escape, Mountain Earth Technique, Change, Boom. As Ling Yu and hundreds of shadow clones slapped their hands on the ground, 2 huge triangular stones rose from the ground and then merged together. The 2 huge stones completely blocked the front of the ice city and left 2 huge deep pits. A few seconds later, endless rocks hit the triangular stone wall. Boom! A huge vibration and roar sounded at the same time, and the huge vibration made the ice city behind tremble a few times. Ling Yu spit out a white silk from his mouth and sat on the ground. Countless mountain rocks and mudslides were blocked and guided by the stone wall in front, and were divided into two, which was very similar to the way Zhu Di and others stopped the avalanche just now. The rocks were guided by the huge triangular stone wall and rushed to both sides, as if they were split by a sword, perfectly avoiding the ice city behind. First, two huge deep pits were filled with mudslides, and then more rock fragments rushed to both sides of the ice city. The people on the rear wall who saw this scene gave deafening cheers, but these sounds were covered and suppressed by the huge sound of the collapse of rocks. Seeing that this natural disaster-like scene was actually blocked, the soul masters on the wall were all overjoyed for a while. This is the joy and excitement of surviving a disaster. The first few minutes were still a dead end, but a few minutes later, there was endless relaxation and joy. And all of this was brought by the young man who looked only 15 or 16 years old at most under the wall in front of him. At this time, many people had passed the life and death barrier, and they were curious about Ling Yu's identity. "Hey, do you know who that young man is? Why haven't I seen him before?" "I don't know, I haven't seen him either. It stands to reason that such a strong young man should have been famous long ago. How come I haven't heard of him? Maybe he prefers to keep a low profile." Hearing the discussions of the crowd, Shui Wuxin's Shui Yuer and the others behind him wanted to announce Ling Yu's identity, but when they thought that this might cause trouble to the other party, and they were all people who were rescued by the other party, Ling Yu saved their lives, and the girls of the Shinshu girls group looked at each other for a few times and felt that it was better not to announce this matter. Ling Yu slumped on the ground, looking at the rock collapse that had been completely blocked in front of him, and he breathed a sigh of relief. Chen Zin and Yu Yuanzhen looked at each other strangely, and their eyes looking at Ling Yu were a little weird. It seemed to mean, "Aren't we titled Douluo? Aren't we the guards guard in the extreme north? How come in the end it was done by someone who could be their grandson? Are we old?" Snow Emperor in the air. Ice Emperor and Atai also stared at Ling Yu with wide eyes. Although they knew that the other party had the ability to hurt titled Douluo, the scene in front of them was still beyond their imagination. Snow Emperor opened her blue eyes and looked deeply at the young man who was slumped on the ground. She thought to herself, to be honest, if she tried her best, she could control the ice and snow to do this, but he was the extreme North Emperor of more than 600,000 years, and his strength was not inferior to that of the extreme Douluo. But who was the other party? He was just a little kid who had not reached the level of Soul King. Although he had relied on the soul power of two titled Douluos to achieve this step, being able to rely on and withstand the use of the soul power of these two was Ling Yu's ability, and others couldn't do it even if they wanted to. No matter from what angle, the hundreds of thousands of soul masters and civilians in Handing City behind would be grateful to Ling Yu. Life-saving grace. Ling Yu felt somewhat satisfied. On the one hand, he seriously injured Hao Ming, the 95th level Super Douluo, and on the other hand, he stopped the evil soul master's plan. In the end, his action won the hearts of hundreds of thousands of people. You have to know that in this northern city, there are at least 1/10 of the hundreds of thousands of people. These civilians and soul masters together have to thank him for saving their lives. This will have a multiplier effect on his future plans and will also be of great benefit to his future reputation. Whether he chooses to unify the continent or chooses to attack any force in the future, he will have an inherent advantage in moral reputation. With this, more Soul Masters will join the Wuhan Hall and the Anti-Evil Soul Master Alliance in the future. Over the years, Ling Yu has fought many evil Soul Masters, big and small. But because of this, he felt more resentful of the inaction of the two empires. Regardless of the lives of the people, they only care about their own fine clothes and food, intrigue, and with such a disaster behind him, he will never let go and fight against the evil Soul Master with all his strength. Not only can he not do it, but 99% of the Soul Masters in the Anti-Evil Soul Master Alliance cannot rest assured, because you don't know when these two empires that have been rotten to the core will give you a blow from the rear. You also don't know how many stupid things those incompetent nobles will do when you are fighting on the front line. Therefore, Ling Yu had figured out Jinrixu's matter a long time ago. Although he thought that she was an idiot and stupid, what she did was still good. After returning from the far north this time, he will take the time to meet with her and help her take the throne of the Xiandao Empire. Although it is a bit difficult to control the Xingluo Empire, it is much easier to control the Xiandao Empire. Of course, the most important thing is Jinrixu, this little girl. Ling Yu paused, and his expression changed a little. Zingluo? Zingluo? Not good. Chapter 160, Concealing the Truth. Ling Yu stood up suddenly, not caring whether his body was weak or not. He took out the Douluo continent map he brought from the spirit hall from his ring and looked through it carefully. Seeing Ling Yu like this, Sword Douluo and Thunder Douluo beside him were a little curious and confused. Ling Yu, what are you doing? Chen Xin walked to Ling Yu's side, looked at him looking at the map with a serious expression, and asked in confusion, did something happen? Ling Yu looked carefully for a while, and when he heard Chen Xin's question, his expression changed drastically and said, it's a big deal. It's too big. Yu Yuanzhan and Chen Xin looked at each other, and both of them raised their eyebrows. What happened? Yu Yuanzhan asked hurriedly, is the evil soul master doing something again? Ling Yu shook his head and said in a lost voice, they do have a plan, but I'm afraid they have achieved their goal at this time. As he said that, before the two asked questions, Ling Yu had already put his hand on the map. You see, we have always thought that the evil soul master's base camp is in the far north, but why do we think so? Ling Yu turned to look at Chen Xin and Yu Yuanzhan and asked. Chen Xin held the sword with one hand and said softly, that was when Feng Zhi and I went out to the far north and were besieged by several evil soul masters and titled Douluo while exploring. Moreover, we detected the auras of many evil soul masters at that time. Thinking of this, he seemed to realize something and asked hurriedly, could it be? Ling Yu nodded, looked at Yu Yuanzhan who was still confused, and explained, it was because of this incident, coupled with the subsequent exploration of the soul masters of the spirit hall, that we always thought that the base camp of the evil soul masters was in the far north. But we were all wrong, Ling Yu said solemnly, these are all sleight of hand, albeit to lure us. He pointed to the far north and Zingluo. You see, the far north is located in the northernmost part of Douluo continent, but Zingluo is located in the southernmost part of Douluo continent. If the evil soul masters rely on the far north as their base camp, if they don't have a garrison or a city, the extremely cold weather outside the far north is not something that those low-level soul masters can withstand. Yu Yuanzhan asked in time, what does this have to do with Zingluo? Of course it is related, Ling Yu continued, just now when Hao Mingshi laughed at the three of them, when I started fighting with them, I was always wondering why even a soul beast as strong as the Snow Emperor appeared with you two Super Douluo. The three of them alone are definitely not our opponents, and they will even be killed by us soon. If this is their base camp, they should have sent more titled Douluo to confront us. But they chose to blow up the two outermost snow peaks in the far north. This is totally unreasonable. Ling Yu's face turned pale, his body was already very tired due to the depletion of his soul power, but he didn't care about so much at this time. He said excitedly, and just now, Hao Ming and the other three elders of the Holy Spirit Church, I noticed their escape direction. It was not the depths of the far north, but the southeast. They flew towards Zingluo. Xiandao has the support of the Seven Treasures Glazed Tile sect and the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex sect of the Anti-Evil Soul Master Alliance. And Xiandao City is not far from the Spirit Hall. Once the Evil Soul Masters invade, the Spirit Hall will have enough time to stop it. At this point, Chen Xin and Yu Yuanzhan had understood about 70% of it. Chen Xin said with a pale face, you mean, Zingluo has? Ling Yu nodded, since Xiandao doesn't work, then their only target is Zingluo. The far north is just a cover they left behind. Their real goal is definitely the Zingluo Empire. I'm even sure that the current Zingluo Empire Emperor Dai Xianfeng has been controlled by the evil soul masters. Ling Yu stood up staggeringly, his steps a little unsteady. Relying on their strength, it is not difficult to break through Zingluo City, and it is not difficult to control the Zingluo royal family. But the real difficulty is how to avoid our sight. That's why they chose to use several titled Douluo to take turns to show up in the far north, and even hide hundreds of evil soul masters here, just to break through this ice city before leaving. At that time, once the soul beasts in the far north riot, it will be difficult for the Xiandao Empire and the two major sects to free up their hands to deal with the evil soul masters. After all, once the ice city is breached, the route from the rear to Xiandao City is all plains, flat and unobstructed. This will give them the opportunity to launch an attack. At this point, Ling Yu's face finally looked a little better, but they don't know that I have some relationship with the Snow Emperor. What they think will not happen. And they probably can't imagine that such a natural disaster can be blocked. Ling Yu raised his head slightly, with a look of emotion on his face. What a trick to deceive the world. Smoke bombs were laid in the far north, but the real main force was lurking towards Xingluo. Such a big thing happened in the far north. At this time, if they are still in the depths of the far north, Zudi will definitely not come out safely, and Bingdi and Atai are even more unlikely. So there is only one possibility, and that is Xingluo. Yu Yuan's face was extremely ugly. They had stayed in the far north for such a long time, being cautious everywhere, just to catch the trace of the evil soul master, but now they found that they were fooled. No wonder I heard that there were many evil soul masters on the road from Xiandao to Jibai. I thought the situation in Jibai would be very bad, but I didn't find any evil soul masters along the way. And the evil soul masters I met when helping Shui Wuxin and others hunt soul beasts were probably baits. They just didn't expect to be dealt with so quickly after meeting me. Ling Yu sighed. It was really a good plan. If I hadn't been paying attention to the traces of evil soul masters along the way, and if Haoming and others hadn't exposed the hidden dangers with their last move, I really wouldn't have thought that their target would be Xingluo. It's too late. It's too late. At this time, Zudi, Bingdi and the other two also landed from the sky. Compared with Chen Xin and the other two whose auras were disordered, Zudi and the others were relatively safe. After all, they are soul beasts, and they are born with more soul power than soul masters. Then according to what you said, half of the continent has been occupied by the enemy. Bingdi's somewhat arrogant voice sounded from behind Ling Yu. Doesn't that mean that these hateful evil soul masters can already compete with the entire continent? Although he didn't want to admit it, Ling Yu nodded. At this time, the anti-evil soul master alliance alone was not enough. If Xiandao didn't contribute, the top evil soul masters could certainly compete, but they were still far behind the low-end combat power. However, after this incident, after they controlled Dai Xianfeng, they had soldiers and a legion of low-level soul masters, and everything could be made up. Hey, the war is not far away. Chapter 161 Decision. Seeing Ling Yu like this, the Ice Emperor and the others were silent for a while. Snow Emperor also floated down from the sky and walked to Ling Yu's side. A fresh and clear fragrance mixed with the fragrance of snow lotus wafted from her body, making Ling Yu's cheeks redden a little when he smelled this scent. He turned his head to look at Snow Emperor on the side. At this time, the other party's face was a little solemn, but it still couldn't hide the beautiful face of this woman. Really beautiful, Ling Yu thought secretly. With such temperament and such beauty, only Danger and Natter can compare with each other. Even Erlong is weaker. Thinking of this, Ling Yu hurriedly shook his head. Now is not the time to think about this. It is still the most important thing to quickly find a way to deal with the evil soul master and the Xingluo Empire. Senior Sword Douluo, please go to the two cities behind and tell the Dragon Douluo of the Spirit Hall about this news, Ling Yu said with a serious face. This matter is too big. If it goes wrong, it will be an all-round war. By then, the Abyss plane has not arrived yet, and the evil soul master will attack us. Once we consume too much combat power in this situation, everything will be too late. Seeing Ling Yu's extremely serious look, Chen Xin nodded heavily, and without any nonsense, he turned around and flew to the back. He had to pass this news on quickly, otherwise if he didn't deal with it well, he would be caught off guard by the other party, and then everything would be over. Yu Yuan's face was also quite solemn when he saw this. After Ling Yu's explanation, he also understood the seriousness of this matter. As the only titled Douluo of the Blue Lightning Tyrannosaurus Rex sect, he had a hot temper. This time, he realized that he was actually fooled by the evil soul master. He felt depressed and angry, and at the same time, he felt helpless. Boy Ling Yu, I have heard about you and Erlong from you Luomian. Yu Yuanzhen turned around and faced Han Bingchen, his tone a little agitated. According to the letter from the family some time ago, Erlong will come out of the secret realm in 2 years at most, and she will most likely get the treasure of the secret realm. I hope you will treat Erlong better then. Don't let her down. I know you are sensible. I watched Erlong grow up, and I know her character very well. Once she chooses someone, she will stick to that person for the rest of her life. I don't want to hear you bullying her in the future, otherwise, even if I risk my life, I will beat you up. Do you understand? Ling Yu nodded heavily. Please rest assured, Senior, I will not let Erlong down. I will treat her as my most precious treasure in this life and the rest of my life. Hearing Ling Yu's firm voice, Yu Yuanzhen's irritable expression finally turned around. Are you going back to Hanbing City with me, or, hearing this, Ling Yu hurriedly said, please trouble me, Senior. This time I want to practice swordsmanship with my senior sister behind me, so that I can contribute to the future war. Yu Yuanhan nodded slightly. Okay, but you also remember that you are the future of the continent, and you must take protecting your life and safety as your top priority. Okay, I won't say much, go with him. After saying that, Ling Yu looked at the back of the burly old man and slowly walked towards Hanbin City. When the old man's figure disappeared, Ling Yu finally turned around and looked at Bingdi and Zudi. Thank you, senior sister, for your help this time. Ling Yu clasped his fists towards Zudi and said, Teacher told me that if I see senior sister, I must learn swordsmanship from her for a period of time. Zudi had a bit of sadness and nostalgia on her face. Well, since the teacher left, I have been practicing swordsmanship hard, but my talent is still a little behind the teacher. Even after hundreds of thousands of years, I have only comprehended a little bit about the earth sword. As for the edgeless sword, maybe I have no chance. After hearing this, Ling Yu shook his head and said, Senior sister, there is no need to be modest. Teacher told me that your mind is the purest in this world. It is because of this innocent heart and pure heart that your talent in swordsmanship is no worse than anyone else. What senior sister lacks is the limitation of her identity as a soul beast. It is also the limitation of the rules. Seeing that Zudi's face improved slightly after hearing his words, he continued, Teacher also told me that even with this limitation, senior sister's achievements in swordsmanship must be the best in the continent. Teacher once said that after his death, senior sister had already comprehended 60% of the heavenly sword. Such a long time has passed. According to senior sister's talent, even if she hasn't fully comprehended the earthly sword, she should be about the same. Zudi glanced at Ling Yu gently, which made him feel a little happy. To be honest, although Zudi is a soul beast, she is the only snow elf born and raised in the world, and is the darling of nature. The moment she was born, she was destined to have a high degree of control over ice and snow. No one below the god level would be her opponent. Of course, she must also be a beauty animal. If Ling Yu looked ugly, she might not have talked to him for so long now. So, women are all beauty creatures. Okay, Zudi said in a gentle voice, since the teacher has given you guidance, then you can go back with me. However, the temperature in the deep north is very low, even the tidal Douluo can't stay for long. Even so, are you still willing to go with me? Of course, Ling Yu said affirmatively, if you can't even resist this setback, it means that I am just a man of this level. Hearing him say this, Zudi's cold and beautiful face finally couldn't help laughing. Now I seem to understand why the teacher accepted you as his disciple. The smile on Zudi's face became a little stronger. At this moment, her beautiful face, which was already unparalleled in the world, seemed to suppress the sun in the sky for a moment. So beautiful. This kind of beauty is not Danger's momentary stunning, nor is it Erlong's charm and Nahor's simple beauty, nor is it Jinriksu's holiness, but a kind of beauty that pleases the heart and soul, as if it can pour a can of iced lemonade on your bored and restless heart. Clear the heart, pure and clean, unparalleled in the world. Even someone like Ling Yu, who had seen the best women on the continent, suddenly saw Zudi showing this expression, and his eyes became dull for a moment. Even if he didn't want to admit it, Ling Yu had to say at this moment that when Zudi smiled, her beauty coupled with her special temperament was slightly inferior to Nahor. Only Danger could compete with her. After all, Nahor was still young, and her little face had not yet grown. Seeing Ling Yu's stunned look, Zudi hurriedly stopped smiling, with a faint blush on her face. Let's go, don't stand there. During this time, I will teach you everything I have learned. I hope you won't let me and the teacher down. Chapter 162 The Hidden 100,000-Year Soul Beast. Ling Yu followed the Snow Empress and headed for the deep north. Along the way, Ling Yu spread his golden phoenix wings and followed behind the Snow Empress, Ice Empress, and Atai. In fact, Atai had an opinion about the Snow Empress taking Ling Yu back to the deep north. As the overlord of the far north, he often saw the soul beasts of the far north being hunted by humans. Over the years, although he had killed many human soul masters, this did not make him feel better about humans, nor did it calm his anger. Instead, he hated human soul masters even more. However, the second elder sister, Ice Empress, had no objection to the Snow Empress doing this, and he, as a younger brother, naturally could not object. Although he now has a cultivation base of more than 100,000 years, once facing the two in front of him, not to mention the Snow Empress, just the Ice Empress, he is not enough for the other party to beat with one hand. As one of the two major tribes in the far north, the Ice Jade Scorpion is not weaker than the Titan Snow Demon Ape in terms of soul beast level. In addition, The Ice Empress's cultivation base is 200,000 years higher than his, so it goes without saying. The Titan Snow Demon Ape is a soul beast that is close to the Titan Giant Ape. The two soul beasts have considerable development potential. Basically, these two soul beasts can compete with the 10,000-year soul beasts when they reach 100 years old. Of course, they are just competing. Ling Yu looked at a Tai beside him, and thought of roaming in the Xingdao Great Forest. Although the size difference is huge, the auras of these two soul beasts are very similar. The cultivation of the two soul beasts is not much different. Neither of them has reached 200,000 years. Their strength is enough to rival the 95th level title Douluo. As for the Ice Emperor, this soul beast of more than 300,000 years old, its strength is not weaker than that of the 97th level title Douluo. Not to mention the Snow Emperor, who can compete with the extreme Douluo. However, with these three, it seems that it is not enough to rely on these three to stop the evil soul masters from hunting and killing. Snow Emperor, are you the only three soul beasts in the extreme north that are over 100,000 years old? Ling Yu asked the Snow Emperor in front of him, who was elegant but fast. Of course not, before Zhu Di answered. Bing Di on the side said first, if it were just the three of us, although we could ensure that we would not perish against the title Douluo of the evil soul master some time ago, it would definitely not be enough to protect the far north. Bing Di raised his head slightly with pride, glanced at Ling Yu who was listening attentively behind him, and continued with a slight smile on his lips. As the largest gathering place for soul beasts in Douluo continent besides the Star Dao Great Forest and the ocean, of course there are not only three of us. We can only say that the three of us are the strongest in the far north. In addition to us, there are 600,000-year soul beasts in the depths of the far north, but these six have just reached 100,000 years ago. But relying on the soul beasts' powerful bodies and powerful soul power, they can also be comparable to some title Douluo of levels 93 and 94. There are even two particularly outstanding ones among these six, and their strength is not even weaker than a Tai. After hearing this, Ling Yu's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. There are six more, Ling Yu said in disbelief, but as far as I know, in the starred out Great Forest, besides those ferocious beasts, there are only 200,000-year soul beasts, the Titan Giant Ape and the Azure Bull Python. There are more in the far north and in the Star Dao. Bing Di glanced at Ling Yu with some sarcasm. Seeing this, Zhu Di on the side also said, that's not the case. The Star Dao Great Forest must be a soul beast gathering place that is much larger than the far north. There are too many unknown soul beasts in it, but they just don't want to show up. Of course, this is also related to the ferocious beasts you just mentioned. They have made a lot of restrictions on these 100,000-year soul beasts, Zhu Di continued casually. Just from what I know, in addition to those ferocious beasts in the Star Dao, there are no less than 700,000-year soul beasts. And one of them is particularly powerful. His strength is even stronger than a Tai, and can be compared with Binger. Hearing Zhu Di's answer, Ling Yu admitted that his knowledge was a bit shallow. Come to think of it, it is true. Xingdao is such a big place. How could there be only 200,000-year soul beasts, Daming and Erming? It seems that I have not observed too much. When I go to Xingdao next time, I must take a good look. With Natter, I will ask Didion to come forward and send a few 100,000-year soul beasts as support. Otherwise, Ling Yu really can't be sure of the outcome of the battle with the evil soul master. The cold wind kept blowing on his cheeks. Ling Yu followed behind Zhu Di all the time. The four of them were gradually approaching the depths of the extreme north. Getting close to here, even a strong body like Ling Yu was a little uncomfortable for a while. It's really that the temperature here is too low. At least it is several dozen degrees below zero. It's simply not a place for people to stay. Looking at the white snowflake world around him, his eyes were a little far-reaching. On the way to the extreme north, he received a letter from Danger. Some time ago, Danger had come to the 7th test of the Rakshasa God test. Only after completing the next 2 tests, he can successfully inherit the Rakshasa God position and become a first-level god. Ling Yu was very excited when he heard the news. Not only because Danger had become stronger, but also because once an all-out war was launched in the future, with Danger around, at least the other Plane Lord wouldn't have to worry for a short time. Of course, feeling the pressure from Danger's impending godhood, Ling Yu did become quite anxious. In the next 1 or 2 years, Ling Yu would do his best to make himself stronger. Although he could now level up every 2.5 months on average, in his opinion, This speed was still a bit slow. In addition, this time, he understood the evil Soul Master's conspiracy, which made him even more anxious. Level up every 2.5 months, level 5 every year, and level 10 every 2 years. This speed was too slow. If it was before, Ling Yu could still accept it, but now the situation was too obscure, and he had to find a way to speed up the process. On the way to the far north, Wu Feng told him to look for the Snow Emperor in the far north. As the boss of the far north, he must know that there are many geniuses and treasures in the far north. Especially 2 things. Wu Feng told him that if he wanted to improve his strength as soon as possible, he had to get at least one of these 2 things. One is the 10,000 years ice marrow. This kind of thing is a treasure that can speed up the Soul Master's cultivation. As long as Ling Yu can get a piece, it will definitely not be weaker than the cultivation speed in the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire at the beginning. This is actually not difficult. Wu Feng told him that as a snow elf, Zhu Di must have a reserve of 10,000 years ice marrow. As long as he has the ability to take a piece from Zhu Di, he will be rich. The second kind is snow lotus. This kind of thing is not rare in the extreme north, but it is rare to have a snow lotus that is more than 1,000 years old. However, even a 1,000-year snow lotus has limited effect on Ling Yu now. However, once he can get a 10,000 years snow lotus, then even if he doesn't have the 10,000 years ice marrow, he will not be in vain. So his primary goal of this journey to the extreme north is to practice swordsmanship with Zhu Di, and the second is to find these 2 treasures. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 163 10,000 Years of Ice Marrow. Half an hour later, as the 4 figures continued to move forward, the human-restricted area deep in the far north gradually opened up to Ling Yu. It was still a white world, but surprisingly, it was no longer snowing here, but thick ice everywhere. The temperature of dozens of degrees below zero made Ling Yu shiver unconsciously the moment he walked in here. It's so cold, Ling Yu said in surprise. The temperature here can't even stay for a long time. You know, he ate the 8-angle ice grass, and his body was already immune to ice. In addition, his body was comparable to that of a tidal Douluo, but even so, he still felt extremely cold. And Ling Yu's eyes showed the 3 Magatama Sharingan. He always felt that he could feel a breath similar to that of Wuhan Mountain here. Could it be that there is a legacy of the gods here? Ling Yu looked at the white world in front of him with some surprise, with snow-capped mountains and crystal-clear ice all over the ground. Wu Feng, can you feel the legacy of the gods here? Ling Yu thought secretly in his heart and asked the Wu Feng sword spirit. I have some feelings, but they are too hidden. Wu Feng's light voice sounded in his mind. There is the power of faith here, and it is certain that there must be something related to the gods here. As for whether it is the inheritance of the gods, I really didn't notice it for a while. Okay, Ling Yu was not disappointed. After all, even if there is a god's inheritance here, it must be a god's residence related to the law of ice, which is not suitable for him, so he didn't think much about it. Come with me. Just when Ling Yu was still thinking about this, the Snow Emperor in front of him whispered to Ling Yu, during this period, I will take out 2 hours every day to teach you swordsmanship. As for how much you can comprehend, it all depends on you. After that, she asked again, how far have you learned swordsmanship now? How much of the heavenly sword have you learned? In fact, after Ling Yu severely injured Hao Ming with a sword, she knew that the other party must have learned the heavenly sword, but how much he has learned remains to be considered. Almost 70%, Ling Yu said modestly. I'm a dull boy, I hope you can forgive me, senior sister. This is a big shot, and he has made great achievements in Wu Feng's swordsmanship, and he is almost completely learning the earth sword. Even if he can't reach the level of Wu Feng before his death, he is much better than Ling Yu. It's more than enough to teach him swordsmanship. 70%, Zhu Di looked at Ling Yu in surprise, and then his eyes became a little enlightened. No wonder, maybe only such a talent in swordsmanship can make the teacher accept you as a close disciple. Ling Yu looked at the other party's face full of sighs and emotions when he mentioned Wu Feng, and thought to himself, it seems that in Zhu Di's heart, Wu Feng has a very high status. It's a pity that I couldn't help the teacher back then, which led to the teacher's death in a battle. Zhu Di's eyes showed a bit of sadness, but this emotion returned to normal in an instant. Without saying anything more, He waved to Ling Yu and walked towards a snowy mountain in front. I usually live in an ice cave on the mountainside. There are several rooms there. You can pick any one. Have a good rest today. I will come to inform you every morning to learn swordsmanship from me. After explaining to Ling Yu, the graceful figure of Zhu Di slowly floated up and flew towards the mountainside. HMPH, seeing Ling Yu staring at Zhu Di's back in a daze, Bing Di on the side snorted coldly, I warn you, although I don't mind you learning swordsmanship from Zur, if you dare to do anything bad to Zur, I will make you look good. Ling Yu looked at the beautiful scorpion beside him in surprise. Why did he feel that the tone of this scorpion was a bit bitchy? HMPH, did you hear that? As if he understood the meaning in Ling Yu's eyes, Bing Di said angrily. Feeling the terrifying momentum of the other party, Ling Yu decisively chose to admit his defeat. There was no way. You have big arms, so you are the boss. HMPH, seeing Ling Yu not in agreement, Bing Di snorted again arrogantly, holding the 6 legs under him, and ran quickly to the side. As for A Tai, he had already returned to his territory before entering the depths of the far north. Feeling the energy here, which was much richer than that in the outside world, Ling Yu's helpless mood was slightly comforted. The external soul bone on his back opened, and he flapped his wings slightly, flying towards the residence of the Snow Emperor. Walking into the cave entrance, Ling Yu put away the external soul bone on his back, and looked at the beautiful scenery in front of him, which was like a crystal palace, with a bit of surprise on his face. Okay, here, after observing the scenery here for a while, Ling Yu casually looked at the several closed-eye stores here. In one of them, he could feel a pure and clean atmosphere inside. That was the residence of the Snow Emperor, and next to the other's residence, there was a room with an open door, which seemed to be prepared by the other party for him. Without thinking too much, he took a step and walked into the room. Just after entering the room and closing the door, Ling Yu had no time to look at the structure of the room, and Wu Feng's surprised voice suddenly sounded. What's wrong? Ling Yu asked in confusion. But is there anything special? You'll know if you look back. Wu Feng didn't explain, but just reminded Ling Yu, and fell silent again. Ling Yu walked into the room with a puzzled look. There was no decoration in the room, all ice, no bed or table, only a huge smooth white jade stone lying in the middle of the room, and a chill emanated from the surface of the stone. What is this? Ling Yu said in disbelief with his eyes wide open. 10,000 years of ice marrow. No matter how he thought about it, he couldn't imagine that the Snow Emperor actually put such a large piece of 10,000 years of ice marrow in his room. If it was a small piece, it would be fine, but the 10,000 years of ice marrow in front of him was at least 3 meters long and wide. This was simply too extravagant. Originally, Ling Yu was still struggling with how to talk to the Snow Emperor and ask for information about the 10,000 years of ice marrow. Who knew that before he could open his mouth, the other party had already sent such a large piece first, which was simply a timely help. Don't be surprised, Wu Feng's light voice sounded in time. Hurry up and sit cross-legged on it and feel it. With this, as long as you stay here for a while, your strength will definitely increase rapidly. Ling Yu nodded heavily, and he hurried to the front of the jade, sat cross-legged on it, and posed with his 5 hearts facing the sky. The body automatically began to operate the cultivation method, and the body, nasal cavity, and all the pores began to greedily absorb the treasure under him. There was no big movement, and Ling Yu felt very confused at first, but soon, feeling the rapidly increasing energy level in his body, he immediately knew what was going on. Before, whether in Wuhan Mountain or the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire, the absorbed soul power needed to flow through the dragon scales on his chest and then be compressed. But now, after he continuously absorbs the energy contained in the 10,000 years of cold ice marrow under his body, the energy will still pass through the dragon scales, but the compression process is directly omitted. It can't be said that it was directly omitted. It can only be said that the energy that would have been compressed 4 or 5 times, now because the energy of the 10,000-year cold ice marrow is extremely pure and viscous, it originally needed to be compressed several times to be converted into energy for his body, but now it only needs to be slightly compressed to complete it. From here, we can see how pure and rich the energy contained in this huge piece of 10,000-year cold ice marrow under him is. This directly saved Ling Yu a lot of time for cultivation. Moreover, under the influence of these extremely pure energies, his cultivation speed also began to gradually speed up. In just half an hour, it was almost twice as fast as before. Ling Yu's face was overjoyed. The feeling of rapid rise in strength was simply too cool. Chapter 164, Far North Sword Training. That night, Ling Yu felt a rapidly growing energy in his body, and he felt endless joy in his heart. The last time he reached such a speed of cultivation was a year ago in the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire. However, due to the birth of his soul core, the absorption of the Dragon Ball, and his long-term exposure to the rich ice and fire energy of the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire, his body has a great adaptability to the soul power there. Although the speed of cultivation is still a little faster than the outside world, it seems too small compared to the nearly several times increase in speed before. Moreover, before he left, the speed of cultivation in the yin-yang eyes of ice and fire was only a little faster than the outside world. With such a small difference, it is useless to continue staying there. Ling Yu looked inward at his Danshin. The soul power that was originally like the Yangtze River was surging and rolling rapidly, and the concentration of energy was growing visibly with the naked eye. I don't know when I can turn these liquid energies into solid state. Looking at the torrent of energy in his Danshin, Ling Yu thought secretly, if I can completely solidify my energy, then at that time, I may be able to compete with the ultimate Douluo or the demigod. Smelly boy, you are too naive. Just as Ling Yu was secretly looking forward to the blueprint of his soul power forming a solid, Wu Feng's merciless ridicule sounded at the right time. Do you think it is easy for soul power to form a solid? I tell you, when soul power forms a solid state, it is not soul power but divine power. Do you understand? Wu Feng continued, with the strength of soul power, even a level 99 ultimate Douluo can only form a semi-solid shape. If you want to completely form a solid state, you can only become a god. Hearing Wu Feng's words, Ling Yu curled his lips. Just say it, why are you so angry? Wu Feng chuckled and said, I'm not so angry. I want to remind you that although your current strength can compete with ordinary title Douluo, you know that even if you use all your strength, you can only launch one attack that can effectively attack the title Douluo. So, honestly enhance your soul power, don't always think so far. What you need to do now is not to turn your soul power into a solid state, but to turn your soul power from rivers to the sea as much as possible. By then, even if the abyss plane invades, you will have the strength to fight. Yes, Ling Yu said helplessly, of course I understand these principles. With this piece of 10,000-year cold ice marrow under me, it has only been a short time, and my energy bottleneck has actually loosened. It seems that I will reach level 47 in a few days. Thinking of this, Ling Yu no longer paid attention and continued to practice with all his heart. Only Wu Feng's eyes in the long sword beside him were left with a far-reaching look. Boy, time is running out. It's not just for you, but for me too. The next morning, facing the sunlight shining from the ice wall, a white tornado spun in this large room. The majestic energy constantly surrounded a thin figure sitting cross-legged on the jade stone. Ling Yu opened his eyes that had been closed all night, and a stream of light flashed in his eyes, like a starry sky, dazzling. Looking at the stone under him that had shrunk by a few centimeters, Ling Yu's mouth slightly protruded with a puff of white smoke. Have you reached the limit of 46? Ling Yu stood up, put on his clothes, and walked out of the cave. When he walked down the mountain, Zudi's pair of unwrapped feet were stepping on the ice. Ling Yu ignored Zudi's face, but his eyes were fixed on Zudi's pair of small feet. Her feet were very small. According to the standard of buying shoes in the previous life, they were only about size 35 at most, very petite and white. 10 toes sparkled in the sunlight and the ice. Ling Yu had to admit that this pair of small feet was the most beautiful he had ever seen. Moreover, Zudi's skin was very white, not the kind of sickly white, but a kind of white and transparent like ice and snow. Even when Ling Yu opened the Sharingan, he could not see any flaws on her face. It was so beautiful. This was a stunner, a creature that any man could not take his eyes off. Every part of her body was simply grown on the aesthetics of male creatures. Zudi raised her head slightly and looked at Ling Yu who was walking down the mountain. She saw that the other party had been staring at her feet. 10 round and plump toes shrank and opened restlessly. A faint blush appeared on her face, and she looked even more moving under the morning light. What are you looking at? Zudi's usual cold voice now carried a bit of anger and shame that even she herself was surprised by. Come here quickly and pull out the sword without a sharp edge from behind you. I will teach you how to practice the heavenly sword. Oh, Ling Yu was distracted for a moment, and then recovered immediately. Damn. This woman is simply amazing. For any man, this woman is simply a poison, and the kind that can't be quit. It was because of him that he had a high aesthetic and resistance to beauty, reaching a level that ordinary people could hardly imagine, that he could resist the charm of Zhu Di. In addition, his excellent mental strength prevented him from sinking into the art of seduction of Zhu Di. To be honest, if Zhu Di's talent was not the control of ice and snow, but was changed to charm, he could hardly imagine who on the road could resist the charm of this woman. Can I only say that she is worthy of being a snow elf? Every place is a gift and creation of nature. Ling Yu took a deep breath, calmed his restless heartbeats, and walked towards Zhu Di. Holding the long sword in his hand, Ling Yu looked at the other party and just raised his hand gently. An ice blue long sword instantly appeared in his soft palm. I won't introduce the composition of the heavenly sword to you one by one. In fact, if you want to fully practice this sword technique, the strength of soul power is one aspect, and the other is the importance of the sword heart. Zhu Di held the long sword in his hand and explained to Ling Yu, the heavenly sword is the teacher's pinnacle work. When I was still in my infancy, my teacher taught me that if you want to really reach the pinnacle of this sword technique, you must have a clear understanding of your own path, especially the intention in your heart is the most important. You must firmly grasp and stick to your beliefs, and, Ling Yu listened carefully. At this time, he was like a sponge, constantly absorbing Zhu Di's explanation of swordsmanship. He had never seen Zhu Di use sword moves, but from the other party's understanding of swordsmanship, Ling Yu could feel that not only himself, but even Jian Douluo could not compare to the woman in front of him. The other party is indeed a soul beast that has practiced swordsmanship for hundreds of thousands of years. Although he is restricted by the rules, he has an extremely thorough understanding of the theory and basics of swordsmanship. There are many things that Ling Yu has never even considered, but after the other party's explanation, he found that the things he had ignored in the past, once he thought deeply about them, actually had great power. Chapter 165 Transcendence? From that day on, Ling Yu began to practice swordsmanship with Zhu Di every day in the extreme north. In just a blink of an eye, 2 months had passed. In the morning of this day, Ling Yu held Wu Feng's sword in his hand, stood upright on the ice, his eyes closed, and slowly experienced the swordsmanship learning during this period. In the past 2 months, because of Zhu Di's explanation, my understanding of the heavenly sword has increased by 20%. Now I am only one step away from a complete understanding, and the power has increased by nearly double compared to before. Ling Yu kept thinking about the swordsmanship training during this period in his mind. He had no foundation in swordsmanship, but after Wu Feng's initiation, it was equivalent to directly experiencing Wu Feng's experience of practicing swordsmanship and creating the heavenly sword, plus his body that had been reshaped and transformed by the Hongmeng purple key, and his incomparable ability to comprehend. He had directly comprehended the heavenly sword to a degree close to 60%. In addition to his many subsequent uses of the heavenly sword in his usual practice, he had already reached 70% in Ice City. In addition, under the guidance of the Snow Queen, he had now reached a 90% comprehension of the heavenly sword. He only needed the last section to fully comprehend the true meaning of the heavenly sword and fully exert the power of this sword technique. Although he would still fall into a state of exhaustion after using it, this move would be handled by at least a super Douluo. Moreover, in the past 2 months, his soul power had reached level 50, and he had risen 3 levels in 2 months. He couldn't believe it. This was the soul power compressed by Ling Yu, and the energy level contained in the 10,000 years ice marrow was extremely high. Otherwise, a soul master of the same level would have to rise by at least a dozen levels. But now, what he cared about most was not the acquisition of the soul ring, but the fact that he could not comprehend the last 10% of the heavenly sword at all. As early as a week ago, he could not make any progress in his comprehension of the heavenly sword. He had no idea after thinking hard and had no idea how to solve it. There was no other way, so he had to ask Wu Feng. Wu Feng, do you know what's going on with me? Ling Yu couldn't help asking, why is it that my level of comprehension has not improved at all? The solution to this is very simple. Wu Feng heard Ling Yu's question and said directly, you are too obsessed and too immersed in the specifications of this sword technique. You need to transcend it. Transcend? Ling Yu narrowed his eyes slightly. He remembered that his grandfather had told him that when he first met the evil soul master, he was once in confusion and couldn't extricate himself. His grandfather had reminded him that only by sticking to his own way could he transcend. He was still confused by this sentence and had no clue at all. Could it be that these two transcendences have the same meaning? Wu Feng seemed not to notice his thoughts and continued, You are too obsessed with my swordsmanship. That is my understanding of the way of swordsmanship, not your understanding of the way of swordsmanship. So what? Ling Yu asked puzzledly. I also know what you mean, so what do I need to do? Why are you so stupid at this time? Wu Feng said speechlessly. Of course you have to create your own swordsmanship. And then combine it with my way of swordsmanship, integrate the heavenly sword with your understanding of the way of swordsmanship, and turn it into your own moves, instead of copying it. For example, when you use the heavenly sword, the black flame mixed with it, I have to say, this black flame is really overbearing. Anyway, I think that except for the gods, the title Douluo will not be safe after being hit by this move. In short, in one sentence, you need to create your own sword moves, and then integrate them with my sword moves. Of course, you have to sort out the order of priority. You must focus on your own swordsmanship and supplement it with my swordsmanship. After listening to Wu Feng's words, Ling Yu suddenly realized that this was the case. It seemed that he was too immersed in these moves and couldn't extricate himself, but lost his own thinking and innovation ability. Once you have figured it out, just do it. However, I suggest you get the spirit ring first. Also, I suggest you don't absorb the evil god pearl in your hand yet. There are two very powerful attributes in it, especially the time attribute. I suggest you absorb it at least when you encounter the inheritance of the gods. At that time, I will use the power of the Wu Fang sword to help you expand this time attribute and try to help you condense the time-related spirit skill. By then, with a spirit skill, it will be amazing. Wu Fang sighed. I don't know why you are so lucky. You should know that even the God Kings rarely master the time attribute, and even if they master it, it is a simple operation, very simple. If you can carry forward this attribute, even if you don't become a god, your strength will be able to compete with a god level. Ling Yu nodded. Since the other party said so, he would not object. After all, among the 3,000 great ways, space is king and time is respected. He still knows this sentence. Also, you don't need to worry about the age of the soul ring. With the devouring attribute of the Wu Fang sword, and the evil god pearl itself has the ability to devour life and energy to increase the age of the soul ring, it can be said that once you absorb this evil god pearl, the soul ring you get will definitely be different from the ordinary 10,000-year soul ring or 100,000-year soul ring. I guess you are very likely to get a growable soul ring. Ling Yu was a little surprised after hearing Wu Fang's explanation. Growable soul ring, yes, it means that as long as you devour enough energy, you can upgrade the age of this soul ring. Even if it is only a soul ring of less than 100,000 years now, as long as you absorb enough energy, you can raise the age of this soul ring to 100,000 years or even hundreds of thousands of years. Ling Yu widened his eyes and listened to the other party's explanation in disbelief. Tisk tisk. I really didn't expect that this evil god beat is so domineering, Wu Feng said casually. Of course not, otherwise how can it be said to be the evil god's incarnation in the mortal world? This is a part of the essence of a god, very tonic. Ling Yu curled his lips. Okay, then I'll listen to you, but in this case, I will have to look for the soul ring in the far north. I originally expected that the fifth soul ring could even sprint for 100,000 years. Do I need to kill 100,000-year soul beast in the far north? Will this annoy the Snow Emperor and the Ice Emperor? Wu Feng was helpless after hearing this. Why are you so stupid? Can't you let the other party find you a soul beast with a strong murderous instinct, more brutal and unpleasant, like the human-faced demon spider? There must be similar soul beasts in the far north, but don't think that there are no such soul beasts that play the role of villains in the far north. Ling Yu nodded. In that case, I'll talk to the Snow Emperor later. Go get the fifth soul ring tomorrow. Chapter 166 Conversation between the two Ice and Snow Emperors. Ling Yu walked into the cave and decided to ask Zhu Di about the soul beasts in the far north. But as soon as he walked into the cave, Bing Di's angry voice suddenly sounded. Zuir, the one-eyed guy has been too much recently. I thought he would be restrained in the past 2 months, but now he has become even more excessive. Although my tribe and Atai's tribe have not been offended by the other party, many soul beasts of other tribes have been slaughtered by the other party recently. In addition, the evil soul masters killed a lot of people in the inner layer of the far north last time. The two combined have caused great losses to the inner layer. This time, we can't ignore the other party no matter what. Zhu Di listened to Bing Di's complaints seriously, and a rare look of anger appeared on her pure face. I know, it seems that he didn't take the warning I gave him last time seriously. Don't worry, I will deal with this matter. Hearing Zudi's answer, Bing Di finally restrained his temper a little, but he still had some anger and unwillingness to fight. Am I here at the wrong time? Ling Yu, who heard the conversation between the two, stepped into the room at this time, stood by the door and looked at Bing Di and Zudi, not knowing what to say for a while. Why are you here? Zudi looked at him in confusion. Have you finished practicing swordsmanship today? How come it's been less than 2 hours? Ling Yu scratched his head and said embarrassedly, well, I have reached level 50. I want to ask if there are any cruel spirit beasts in your far north, like the human-faced demon spider in the stars, which are not liked by you. If there are, I can help you solve them. Zudi's eyes lit up, and just as she was about to say something, Bing Di on the side said sarcastically, you? Get spirit rings? How many years of spirit rings do you want to get? Bing Di looked at Ling Yu, and then looked at his physical strength, and asked him. Oh, this, about 100,000 years old. Ling Yu also knew that it was not good to ask for a soul ring in front of a soul beast, and it was a 100,000-year-old soul beast, not to mention that such combat power was scarce everywhere. He was even ready to be beaten. 100,000 years? Bing Di snorted coldly. Do you want to kill me and make a soul ring for you, Binger? Zudi heard Bing Di's words and blamed him angrily. Humph! Bing Di glanced at Ling Yu and stood aside without saying anything. From time to time, he looked at Ling Yu with a strange look, as if he wanted to beat him up. Ling Yu looked at him a little embarrassedly. He also knew that this kind of thing was a bit too much for a soul beast, but he was willing to give it a try to see if there were any soul beasts that were not sociable or evil and bloodthirsty. Snow Queen looked at Ling Yu with a strange look in her eyes, and said softly, let me think about this matter. Don't worry, leave the soul ring to me. I will find a soul beast with the right age and attributes for you. Zuier, hearing Snow Queen's answer, before Ling Yu could smile happily, Ice Queen on the side said dissatisfiedly, are you serious? He is a human, and, Snow Queen stretched out her hand to interrupt Ice Queen's words, and gestured to Ling Yu. Seeing this, the other party walked out of the cave. Zuier, do you really want to help him find a suitable soul beast? Ice Queen's face was full of incomprehension. You know, his body and mental strength can fully support him to obtain a 100,000-year soul ring. Do we have to help him hunt a 100,000-year soul beast? At this point, Ice Queen's face became quite ugly. She was quite annoyed about the current situation of soul beasts. As one of the overlords of the far north and the head of a clan, the current situation of soul beasts will sooner or later be exterminated. I understand what you are thinking. Zudi put her hands behind her back and said with a profound look in her eyes, but this kind of thing is not entirely the fault of human soul masters. We need to judge from the root and the origin. Looking at Bing Di's somewhat puzzled eyes, Zudi patiently explained, when I first met Ling Yu, one of his words left a deep impression on me. That is, this is the mistake of the rules, not the wish of mankind. After all, the way soul masters advance by hunting and absorbing soul rings is originally due to the rules set by the God realm. If you want to change this kind of thing, there are only two ways. The first is to kill all humans. But once this kind of thing is done, let's not talk about whether it can be done or not. Even if it can be done in the end, what is the difference between us and the current human soul masters? Aren't we complaining about injustice with our mouths, but doing the same thing as them with our hands? Isn't this a kind of irony? Bing Di's eyes narrowed, and his expression was a little sad. Snow Emperor simply glanced at her calmly and continued, the second way is to change and break the rules. For soul beasts, the possibility of success in this kind of thing is very slim, because this kind of thing requires confrontation with the entire God realm. This kind of thing was not done when the Dragon God was alive and when the Dragon Clan was at its peak, let alone now. Then, Bing Emperor also showed a sad face when he saw this. Then we have no possibility at all? Can we only watch the soul beasts die and become extinct in front of our eyes? Of course not. There was a gleam of wisdom in Snow Emperor's eyes. Just because we soul beasts can't do it, it doesn't mean that humans can't do it. Bing Emperor's face suddenly changed, and he looked confused and didn't know what to say. What do you think of Ling Yu? Zudi ignored Bing Di's doubts and pretended to ask casually, after observing and getting along with him for a period of time, what do you think of him? Bing Di didn't understand why Zudi asked this, but he put away the little thoughts in his heart and answered seriously, although this person is a bit greedy and doesn't know what's good for him, his heart and character are really good. At least in all these years, this is the first time I've seen a human being so gentle to soul beasts. And I have to say, His talent is rare in the world. Even Wu Feng was not as good as him back then. Zhu Di nodded with satisfaction and said gently, "So, why don't we invest in each other?" "What do you mean?" At this point, Bing Di had realized something. She asked in surprise, "You don't want to use the one-eyed guy as Ling Yu's fifth soul ring, do you?" Bing Di hesitated, "Although I really don't like the one-eyed guy, and even hate him very much, but I can't let such a powerful fighter who is as strong as a Tai be abandoned, right? You know, his bloodline is very strong. If we are at the same level, even you and I are not as good as him. Only Di Bian from Xingdao can fight against him, right?" Chapter 167 is now confirmed. "Of course I know that," Zhu Di said with a somewhat cold face, "but undisciplined subordinates, no matter how strong they are, can be abandoned and killed at will. Otherwise, keeping them will be a disaster." Hearing Zhu Di's cold words, Bing Di was a little at a loss, but finally nodded in agreement. "Since you have made this decision, I have no choice but to support you," Zhu Di nodded, and did not doubt Bing Di's answer at all. The two have been friends for hundreds of thousands of years, and they know what the other is thinking even with a glance. "Then go and talk to that kid Ling Yu later," Bing Di said to Zhu Di. "When the time comes, will it be you or me who will take action? You know, that one-eyed guy is still rampant in the inner layer of the far north. A Tai has fought with him several times, but he can't do anything to him," Zhu Di said indifferently. "Neither of us needs to take action. Just let Ling Yu do it himself." "He himself," Bing Di said with wide eyes. "Although I don't deny the boy's strength, the one-eyed guy is someone that even a level 95 title Douluo can't beat." "Are you sure?" Zhu Di's mouth curled up, adding a touch of charm to her already beautiful face, making Bing Di, who was watching this scene, look a little dazed and her face a little flushed. "Don't worry, his growth is definitely beyond your expectations. Even though it's only been 2 months, he is already one step away from fully understanding the heavenly sword. With his speed, it's no wonder that the teacher chose him as the successor, and it's no wonder that the edgeless sword was willing to be held by him." Bing Di's eyes widened, and he seemed to be in disbelief at Zhu Di's reply, his eyes full of surprise. "It's settled." Zhu Di turned and walked out of the cave. "This matter will be left to Ling Yu himself. We just need to tell him the location of the one-eyed man, and as for the rest, it's up to him. If he can deal with the one-eyed man, then even if he absorbs his soul ring and soul bone, I have no objection, but if he can't do it, don't blame me for not giving him a chance," Zhu Di said as he walked. "Moreover, if he can do this, I hope that no matter what he wants to do next, we will give him all our support, not only because of his talent, but also because our soul beasts want to find a way out, and he is the only choice." Bing Di heard this, his eyes suddenly shone, and in the end he couldn't say anything. At the foot of the mountain, Ling Yu was sitting cross-legged on the ice, with one hand on his knee supporting his chin, looking a little sad. "Wu Feng, do you think Zhu Di will agree to this?" Ling Yu said with some melancholy. "After all, she is the boss of the soul beasts in the far north, but I am going to kill his little brother now to get the soul ring for my promotion to Soul Emperor. This." "Hey," Wu Feng heard Ling Yu's words and said with some amusement, "You kid, just be happy. Don't worry, I know this girl better than you do. She is a standard template of being cold on the outside but warm on the inside. She says she disagrees, but she may be thinking about how to help you hunt soul rings in her heart. The soul beasts you need must be available in such a big place in the far north, and there will be no shortage of them. Of course, this is only one of the reasons. The more important reason is that the other party is the soul beast overlord, and you are a person with a good sense of soul beasts, and your talent, well, is also reasonable. So, she will definitely help you. Of course, there must be conditions, and you need to consider it yourself." Ling Yu curled his lips. "What do you mean my talent is reasonable? Go out and find someone with better talent than me, let me see. When it comes to talent, I've never been better than anyone else." While Ling Yu and Wu Feng were talking, a crisp sound of footsteps suddenly sounded from behind. "Ling Yu?" Hearing the familiar voice, Ling Yu stood up instantly, with a look of anticipation on his face, looking at the beautiful woman in a white dress behind him. "I have already discussed with Avenger about your acquisition of the soul ring." Zhu Di walked up to Ling Yu and whispered, "There is indeed a soul beast in the far north that meets your requirements. Not only is it 100,000 years old, but it is also a spiritual and space soul beast." "Oh," Ling Yu's eyes sparkled, "really?" "But," Zhu Di raised her hand to interrupt Ling Yu and continued, "I have already thought about this matter, you don't have to doubt it. I can tell you the basic information of this soul beast. As for how to kill this soul beast, it is up to you. Binger, Atai and I will not provide you with combat assistance. Ling Yu rubbed his hands together, with an unhappy smile on his face. Of course, you just need to tell me the location and information of this soul beast. As for how to kill this soul beast, it is my own business. Ling Yu's heart was filled with endless joy. You know, this is 100,000-year soul beast. As long as he kills this soul beast, he will get his first 100,000-year soul ring. This is the most precious treasure in Douluo continent and the treasure that all soul masters dream of. Moreover, killing 100,000-year soul beast will definitely give you 100,000-year soul bone. Although the way to absorb soul bones has changed a lot because of the scales on his body, the energy of soul skills and soul bones can still be absorbed. Soul skills will be engraved on his bones, and the energy of soul bones can make his body stronger. This is a matter of killing two birds with one stone. Danger tried every possible way to obtain 100,000-year soul ring. Before the evil soul master was so rampant, he felt very annoyed about hunting 100,000-year soul beasts to complete the divine test. Although I suggested to him to go to the sea to hunt soul beasts, after all, the soul beast content in the sea is richer than the gathering places of machine-killed soul beasts on the Douluo continent, and the 100,000-year soul beasts there are extremely abundant. Of course, I also told Danger about the information about the deep-sea demon whale king. After all, I am still relatively clear about the basic information about Tang San, so I asked her to ask Jin Douluo for help when hunting soul beasts. After all, if two level 99 extreme Douluos join forces, even the deep-sea demon whale king, who is about to reach 1,000,000 years, will have to retreat a few points. However, he had talked about this matter with Wu Feng the last time he realized the evil soul master's true intention. It seemed that in order to help the Douluo continent resist the invasion of the abyss, the God realm had greatly reduced the difficulty of the God test and greatly improved the reward mechanism for the God test. This would not only allow the heirs to complete the God test quickly, but also greatly improve the heirs' combat effectiveness. Chapter 168 Bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus. Ling Yu looked at Zhu Di, expecting her to introduce him to the information of this 100,000-year-old soul beast. Glancing helplessly at the excited Ling Yu, Zhu Di said softly, "The soul beast I chose for you is a soul beast called the Bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus. You may not have heard of this soul beast, but what I can tell you is that the blood strength of this soul beast is very strong. Even Binger, Atai and I are not as good as each other at the same level." Ling Yu's pupils shrank, and his expression was a little solemn. Even Bing Di and Zhu Di are not as good as each other? You must know that Zhu Di is a snow elf. Her talent in ice and snow is unmatched. From the beginning of her birth, she was destined to be the overlord of ice and snow. Unless the ice god descends, there is no soul beast that can compare with her. But now she actually said that at the same level, she is not as good as this soul beast called the Bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus. This is the first time I have heard the name of this soul beast. Seeing the seriousness in Ling Yu's eyes, Zhu Di continued, "This kind of soul beast is a peculiar thing in the soul beast world. You can think of it as a hybrid soul beast made up of various true dragon bloodlines, but it is undeniable that although the bloodline in his body is mixed, it is very strong. And he has many methods that only true dragons can use. As far as I know, except for the golden-eyed black dragon King Dion in the center of the stars, who can suppress him at the same level, basically no one can compare to him. Not even the dark gold terror claw bear and the titan giant ape can do it." Ling Yu's face changed slightly. So strong. He had seen this soul beast called Dion once. Even now, Ling Yu was sure that if Jin Douluo and Danger confronted this soul beast called Dion head-on, the two of them might not be able to beat him together. You have to know that these are two level 99 extreme Douluo, and both are related to gods. One is the successor of the Rakshasa god, and the other is the high priest of the angel god. In this case, he deeply felt that the two were far inferior to each other, which shows how strong Dion is. However, now, Zhu Di actually said that this bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus can actually compete with Emperor Dion of the same level. It seems that the difficulty of obtaining this soul ring is a bit high. I haven't finished yet. Seeing the shock in Ling Yu's eyes, Zhu Di said mercilessly, "The birth of this soul beast is very strange. His birth conditions are somewhat similar to mine. He has no parents, or rather, his parents are the Heaven and Earth and the Dragon Clan. His birth conditions are extremely harsh. Since the appearance of soul beasts, This soul beast has only appeared 3 times. The first time it appeared was in the early days, when the dragon god created the dragon clan. Because of the power struggle within the dragon clan, many real dragons fell, and the blood gathered into a lake. The evil thoughts and the blood of the real dragons mixed together, and accidentally caused the birth of the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus. This soul beast does not rely on its own practice to increase its own cultivation, but relies on killing and blood, as well as absorbing the evil thoughts of dead creatures as nutrients to improve its strength, so you can think of it as an evil soul master among soul beasts. Ling Yu's mouth opened slightly. He didn't expect that this kind of soul beast was born in this way. Doesn't this mean that as long as enough soul beasts are killed and enough soul beasts are absorbed, the blood and evil thoughts of soul beasts can be unconditionally increased? This is too domineering. As if she understood the meaning of Ling Yu's expression, Zudi nodded and said, there is no bottleneck in the cultivation of the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus. As long as there is enough blood and evil thoughts from living beings, he can be infinitely strengthened. Moreover, unlike ordinary soul beasts that survive the heavenly tribulation once every 100,000 years, he survives the heavenly tribulation once every 20,000 years. This is also the restriction made by the God Realm when it finds that the opponent's ability is too unsolvable. When Ling Yu heard this, he hurriedly asked, when was the other time the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus appeared? Zudi stared at Ling Yu and said, I just said that the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus appeared for the first time at the beginning of the birth of the Dragon Clan, but this soul beast seemed to kill the Dragon Clan instinctively because it was just born, but before the Dragon God could feel it, it was slapped to death by the passing Light Dragon King. And the second time it appeared was during the war in the God Realm. That time was also when the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus became really famous. Who would have thought that because of the war in the God Realm, the Dragon Kings and true dragons of the Dragon Clan fell in large numbers, and the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus was once again bred. Because of the abundance of dragon blood and the evil thoughts of the dragon race, in just a few years, this bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus has grown directly from the larval stage to the point where it can compete with a first-level god confrontation because it has swallowed a large amount of blood and evil thoughts of the fallen dragon race and gods. Moreover, there is no bottleneck in the middle. As long as the conditions are sufficient, he can grow to a certain level in the shortest time. However, it is precisely because of this that the spirit of the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus is very bloodthirsty and crazy. Even the dragon god can only suppress it for a short time. In the end, when there is no way, the dragon god has to let the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus die together with the opponent's first-level god confrontation on the battlefield of the God Realm War. So it can be said that this soul beast is a growing dragon king, because at the same level, except for the 9 dragon kings who can suppress him, no one can defeat him. Hearing this, Ling Yu was completely shocked. It turned out to be like this. Doesn't that mean that he will not only deal with a dragon soul beast, but also a growing Emperor Tian? This is too difficult. Well, since he is so strong, can I really kill him by myself? Ling Yu scratched his head and asked in a muffled voice, isn't this a bit too much? Zudi glanced at him unhappily and continued, if it is a bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus in its complete period, of course you can't beat it. But a few years ago, because of the appearance of this soul beast, it killed a lot of people in the far north. In a rage, I destroyed one of his eyes and beat him seriously. He can't recover without 1,000 years. And I asked Tai and Binger to watch him all the time. Originally, I wanted to use him as a weapon of war. But there is no way. He is too bloodthirsty. During this period, many soul beasts in the far north were killed and devoured by the opponent. I can only abandon him. Because he is still seriously injured, his strength is only 60% of his prime period. Coupled with your understanding of the heavenly sword during this period, I think you should be able to do it. Hearing this, Ling Yu finally exhaled a deep breath. If that was the case, it would be fine. After all, he only had level 50 soul power. After Zudi's description, he already knew how powerful this soul beast was. Even with a heavenly sword and the Sharingan, as well as the edgeless sword, he was not sure he could kill such a soul beast. But now that the other party was seriously injured, he could still consider it. In that case, I'll do it. Chapter 169 Bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus, Part 2. Seeing that the other party agreed, Zudi nodded and continued, this time, he appeared for the 3rd time. His appearance was because of a secret realm, that is, a small space. Small space? Ling Yu was a little puzzled. What is a small space? A small space is a space opened up by a god-level strongman alone. There is spiritual energy in the space but no rules. Therefore, growing to the soul Douluo level in it is the limit and cannot grow anymore. Of course, the rules of each small space are different. The one-eyed one can only grow to the soul Douluo at most. Zudi put his hands behind his back and said vaguely, that is a space of the Dragon Clan. I don't know where it is exactly. The only one who knows where this place is the one-eyed one, that is, the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus. I asked him, but he didn't want to say it. I had to destroy one of his eyes and beat him seriously. Ling Yu's mouth twitched a few times, and he looked at Zudi with a strange look. So domineering? Snow Queen ignored Ling Yu's gaze behind him and said to himself, when he first appeared in the far north, the space was very distorted. I immediately felt his position and breath. At that time, he was very close to the 100,000-year level. It was only 2 years ago that he broke through the 100,000-year level and easily survived the 100,000-year heavenly tribulation. Later, because his dragon blood was too strong and his level was too high, his bloodthirsty thoughts were too strong and he wanted to cause a lot of killing in the far north. I had no choice but to beat him seriously. However, at that time, I could feel a strong sense of oppression from his blood. I am sure that he must have swallowed the blood and evil thoughts of the Dragon King level, otherwise he would never have grown so fast. Ling Yu swallowed his saliva, and the confidence that had just risen in his heart collapsed again. However, he was not afraid, but worried that he would not be able to solve the other party this time. The Ice Queen and the Snow Queen were unwilling to help. He finally got the other party's consent. Could it be that such a 100,000-year soul beast that suits him should be given up? He felt very unwilling. Snow Queen ignored his expression. This was also a test for Ling Yu. If he passed, then from now on the entire North would spare no effort to help Ling Yu, help him become a god, and help him change the rules. This was a big investment, and the entire North would invest in him. If he failed, the soul beasts would gradually die out. If he succeeded, the future of the soul beasts would usher in the dawn, light and hope. And this would all depend on whether he could kill the one-eyed man this time. Ling Yu took a deep breath. He also vaguely felt Snow Queen's intention, but this was consistent with his beliefs. You know, he promised Natter that he would help her solve this twisted rule. The grievances of the old era need to be erased, and the new era will be created by newcomers like him. Cultivation is like this, like sailing against the current. If you don't move forward, you will retreat. The same is true for the God realm. If you just hold on to the grievances and disputes of the past, blindly pursue your own, and cannot change or innovate, then what will greet them is the coming time and space turbulence, and they can only be destroyed in it. He didn't want another great war in the God realm, otherwise, all planes under the rule of the God realm would suffer a devastating blow. How many living beings would be destroyed during this period? These innocent people should not be affected for no reason. I know. Ling Yu looked at Zudi with a firm look in his eyes. You only need to tell me the basic information and location of the other party. I just need to make some preparations, and the rest depends on me. Zudi looked at him with praise. Not bad. She was not disappointed. Her 700,000-year catastrophe is coming. To be honest, she has no confidence that she can survive it. In addition to the one in the deep sea and Deeton in the stars, she is the third soul beast that is about to experience the 700,000-year catastrophe. The former accumulated a lot of strength and took advantage of the sea to survive, while the latter Deeton relied on his powerful bloodline of the Dragon King to survive. But as a snow elf, although her bloodline is not weak, she does not have the deep foundation of the former, nor the strong bloodline of the latter. All she has is a strong cultivation and a strong control over ice and snow. He didn't have the right time and place, and she had no confidence at all. Thinking of this, he looked at Ling Yu with a bit of complexity. Maybe that was the only way. But once he did that, she and the other party would be tied together tightly. If he died, she would die too, but if she died, he would only suffer some injuries. Heizudi sighed, turned around and began to introduce information about the soul skills of the one-eyed man to Ling Yu. 3 days later, the sky was covered with white clouds, and the orange sunlight was swaying in the clouds, making the white ice and snow world of the extreme north printed with a bit of red brilliance. On a snowy mountain in the inner layer of the extreme north, a thin figure carrying a purple long sword walked slowly in this extremely cold world. The bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus should be in front, which is where the one-eyed man is. Ling Yu finally exhaled a white mist and whispered softly, in the past 3 days, I have consolidated my cultivation level of reaching level 50, but my understanding of the sword has not made any progress. This is very annoying. Looking at a white lake at the foot of the mountain in front, his eyes narrowed slightly. It seems that I can only launch some sneak attacks or respond according to the information given by Zudi. Ling Yu shrugged helplessly. Besides this, there is really no other way. A few days ago, Zudi gave him a detailed introduction to the information about the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus. It must be said that after listening to Zudi's introduction, Ling Yu's inner confidence was hit again. Very strong. No, it should be said that it is too strong. After Zudi's explanation, he even doubted whether he was hanging on the wall or this soul beast was hanging on the wall. Because the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus contains dragon blood above the level of true dragon, these bloods are mixed together, and it will be very mixed at the beginning. However, as long as the cultivation reaches more than 100,000 years, the blood is not mixed. Instead, these powerful bloods begin to gradually condense into new blood that belongs to the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus in the opponent's body, and this blood is very powerful. This is why the potential of the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus is not weaker than the 9 Dragon Kings. Not only does he have moves that are not inferior to the true dragon level, but he has also innovated on this basis and created his own magical power. That's right, it's magical power. This soul beast has 2 soul skills that are completely out of the scope of soul skills and can already reach the level comparable to magical powers. The first one is a soul skill called Qian Long, ignoring the level and forcibly reducing the target's all attributes by 50%, which is simply outrageous. However, this skill is just the natural counter for Ling Yu. His third soul skill is Demonization, which increases all attributes by 30%, and increases by 1% for each level. And it also comes with an effect of increasing his spiritual soul skills by 50%, and it also increases by 1% for each level. Now he's already level 50, which is equivalent to an increase of 80% in all his attributes. What a concept, this is equivalent to nearly quadrupling his strength. These 2 effects added together are equivalent to an increase of 280% in the effect of his spiritual soul skills. By increasing all attributes by 20%, a soul master's strength can be doubled. The 80% increase in all attributes plus Ling Yu's own strength is the real reason why he can compete with the title Douluo in terms of explosive power. Of course, the increase in his second soul skill is also very strong, 30% plus the current level 50, which is 50% of the soul skill bonus, plus 20% of the mental power increase. With a combination of the 2, even Ling Yu feels his good luck every time he thinks of this. It can be said that each of his current 4 soul skills can be called a magical skill. Needless to say, the Golden Eyes and Furious Eyes, which is known as the first control skill on the continent, will force soul masters who are 3 major classes higher than him to be controlled for 0.3 seconds. Now after the increase in the second and third soul skills, 0.3 280% 180% equals 1.944 seconds. Even if a title Douluo is hit by his soul skill, he will be forced to control for nearly 2 seconds. However, although this first soul skill is very strong and can be called a magical power, what really makes him anxious is his second skill, Dragon God's Wrath. This skill can be heard from the name. It is actually related to the Dragon God. It can be seen that this skill is absolutely domineering and unparalleled. In fact, after Zudi's explanation, this skill really lives up to its name. Compulsory sealing of the soul power of living beings for up to 3 minutes. An extremely powerful control skill. In front of this skill, even the Golden Eyes are not enough. A soul master without soul power can only use the physical body, which has a huge impact on strength. The performance of low-level soul masters is not too obvious, but for high-level soul masters, without soul power, in a battle of the same level or 1 level lower, a title Douluo without soul power, even the most basic soul Douluo of level 81, can easily kill the opponent. And relying on the physical body alone, Ling Yu dares to say that he has never been afraid of anyone. If Ling Yu is hit by the opponent's skill in the next battle, he will not even be able to escape. Without soul power, soul skills become decorations, the heaven sword cannot be used, and even the effect of the martial soul will disappear. Hey, Ling Yu glanced ahead in annoyance and sighed in worry. Being a man is hard. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 170 Weird Atmosphere. Ling Yu continued to walk forward, and in front of him was an area similar to a basin. In the center of the basin was a lake with sparkling white light. The temperature here was warmer than other places, making this place look uniquely beautiful. Ling Yu walked down the mountain slowly, looking at the surrounding scene with sharp and cautious eyes. This is the inner area. It stands to reason that there should be at least a few signs of soul beasts in such a large basin, but now there is no trace of soul beasts. Something must be wrong when things are abnormal. This weird atmosphere made Ling Yu, who stepped into this place for the first time, start to get goosebumps on his arms. Ling Yu opened his 3 Magatama Sharingan and kept patrolling every place around the lake. Where is it? His face was a little nervous. Why can't I feel the other party's breath? It shouldn't be. The Sharingan has now reached the level of a kaleidoscope. Even a tidal Douluo cannot hide in the area I sense. How could it be? Ling Yu stared at the frozen lake in front of him and raised his feet to walk on it. The tense atmosphere continued to surround this space, and even cold sweat began to appear on Ling Yu's forehead. Just as Ling Yu stepped onto the lake and walked on it, a huge black shadow swam quickly from behind him under the lake. The huge body was like a ghost in the ice lake, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The speed was so fast that it was like a flash in the pan, and it did not attract Ling Yu's attention at all. Something is wrong. Ling Yu felt the hairs on his arms standing up, the heartbeat in his chest, and the nerves in his mind constantly reminding him, which made his body gradually stiffen, and his face became very serious. Down there, the moment this thought flashed through his mind, a ferocious beast with a bloody mouth full of sharp teeth suddenly rushed out from under him and pounced on Ling Yu. Damn it! Ling Yu spread the golden phoenix wings behind him, and the golden flame stretched behind him. The intense temperature melted most of the ice under him in an instant. Swish! His figure was like a bullet. There were several explosions behind him. He moved to the edge of the lake in an instant and dodged the attack from below. Boom! The huge lake seemed to be blown up by a huge nuclear bomb. The surging water mixed with ice exploded on the lake. The huge waves hundreds of meters high rushed towards the sky. A huge half-black and half-red figure was half hidden and half appeared in the water. Ling Yu stood on the air, his pupils widened, staring at the giant beast in front of him. Endless momentum came from the other party. Under the pressure of this not-so-large area, his body actually fell into a short stiffness, unable to extricate himself. Bloodthirsty, Tyrannosaurus, he opened his mouth slightly, watching the water in front of him gradually disappear, and his whole body was like a giant dragon wrapped in metal and muscle. The dragon's reminder was very large, with a dragon body of at least 20 meters, a pair of dragon wings more than 30 meters long behind it, and the other party's ferocious and violent dragon body. Strong. Fierce. It was just the first time he saw it, but Ling Yu could already feel the deep oppression from the other party. He stared at the other party without blinking. The giant dragon in front of him was very different from the dragon soul beasts in his mind. In terms of appearance, the dragon scales on its body could open and close continuously, sometimes like dense daggers, and sometimes like a heavy shield. The neck was much shorter than the previous three-eyed dragon and other dragon soul beasts, especially the lower jaw, which was like a piece of black iron, constantly flashing a metallic luster. However, this did not make the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus in front of him weird. Instead, it had a distinctly strong and sturdy appearance. The muscles on its body looked like sculptures, and the bone spurs continued from the spine to the tail. As expected, it is a bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus that has only appeared 3 times. Ling Yu's eyes were filled with shock and disbelief, and he sighed at the soul beast in front of him. Such momentum, such a physical body, even Erming can't compare. No, even a Tai can't. In terms of physical body alone, among soul beasts, only the former Red King can compare with this soul beast in front of him. Ling Yu's eyes were full of surprise. He had never seen what Dian looked like, but he knew that the Red King had the blood of a real dragon, and the age was as high as 250,000 years, which had surpassed a category of 100,000-year soul beasts and reached the level of fierce beasts. But even for such a fierce beast, the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus in front of him, which had just entered the 100,000-year level, was not inferior in momentum at all, and its physical body was even better. Sure enough, it's strong enough. Ling Yu's eyes showed a hint of excitement. This was his first time to seriously fight a 100,000-year soul beast. No matter from which angle, the one in front of him was definitely stronger than Hao Ming. He held the sword tightly in both hands, staring at the fierce beast in front of him with his Sharingan in his eyes. The sharp aura surprised the other party. "You are the human boy brought back by Zudi, Bing D and that fool Atai some time ago?" Unexpectedly, the half-red and half-purple bloodthirsty dragon in front of him said in a very clear voice, "Why do you have the aura of the Dragon King?" "And it's the aura of the two guys, the Fire Dragon King and the Water Dragon King." Ling Yu heard the other party's voice and looked at him strangely. For a moment, his fierce momentum was broken. Shouldn't the Dragon Clan have extremely strict seniority? At least he learned from Danger and Zudi that as long as it is a Dragon Soul Beast, it should show respect to the Dragon Soul Beast with a higher bloodline and older age. Why is the Soul Beast in front of him speaking in a tone of fear? The bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus, which closed one eye, opened one blood-red eye and looked at Ling Yu. Suddenly, there was no trace of fierceness, but a kind of indescribable peace. As if he understood Ling Yu's expression, the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus continued, "Don't think I'm an ordinary Dragon Soul Beast. I'm not a new Soul Beast that has just developed consciousness. Although I have only appeared 3 times, the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus will only have one consciousness. In other words, I was who I was hundreds of thousands of years ago. I will only have one consciousness from beginning to end, but it will be born again after the physical body dies. In terms of seniority, I am the same as the 9 Dragon Kings. In terms of talent, I am far better than them. Only the Dragon God can suppress me. If I can keep growing, I may become the second Dragon God." Ling Yu straightened his back, holding the sword in one hand, with a strange look on his face. "Don't you know what I'm here for?" Ling Yu looked at the other party in confusion. "Aren't you unconscious and have been killing people in the far north? Why do you give me a completely different feeling now than what the Snow Queen said?" Chapter 171 Extreme Flash. A man and a beast floated quietly in the air, and a strange atmosphere gradually spread in this area. The one-eyed man still stared with a blood-red eye. He did not answer Ling Yu's question, but stared at the other's chest tightly, with a few subtle fears and relief flashing in his pupils. Ling Yu saw that the other party did not have the slightest murderous intent, but instead chatted with him on their first meeting, which was the first time he had seen such a thing. Oh no, he had also experienced such a thing when he first met Tian in Xingdao. At that time, Tian's attitude towards him was somewhat similar to that of the beast in front of him. He also guessed about such a thing. It might be related to the scales on his chest. After all, when he first absorbed the spirit ring, he heard that the mainland had a great impact because of this incident. Moreover, Nader also told him that the reason why she was able to recover consciousness so quickly was that her strength had almost recovered recently, and she only needed to obtain the spirit ring. By then, he would be able to reach the peak of the Silver Dragon King again, and by then, even the first-level god would not be his opponent. Although he didn't know how strong the Yinglong on his chest was, he could get a glimpse of his strength from that dream. Suddenly, the galaxy reappeared, the universe revived, and the huge body filled the entire universe. Endless elements, time, space, and various avenues surrounded the other party. That kind of endless power was unimaginable compared to the Abyss Plane and Douluo Plane, which were still fighting for a planet and fighting to the death. He didn't know whether the scale on his chest was Yinglong's, but even if it was not Yinglong's, it must have a great relationship with the other party, and just from the help this scale provided him along the way, it was not difficult to see that the current power was only a tiny part. He had an intuition that he would become a god. The moment he became a god, he would usher in a drastic change, and at that time, this dragon scale might truly show part of his power. Ling Yu looked up at the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus, staring at the other party's body that was not moving at all, not knowing what this alien dragon was going to do. And just after this atmosphere lasted for about a few minutes, the other party finally started his own action. He opened his arms and looked at Ling Yu with a strong aggressive look. At the same time, deep in his pupils, there was a deep temptation and test. The 10 fingers of the one-eyed man opened, and the 10 sharp dragon fingers quickly crossed and waved towards Ling Yu. Buzz! The space trembled, and 10 blood-colored ripples rushed towards Ling Yu. The opponent's sudden attack made Ling Yu a little confused for a while. If the one-eyed man wanted to kill him, but there was no tension and murderous intent like when he first stepped into this basin, but if the opponent was not going to kill him, this attack on him was at least a full-strength attack of a level 95 Super Douluo. At least, this casual move of the opponent would not be weaker than Hao Ming's 8th soul skill. This strength is somewhat inconsistent with the description of the Snow Queen. Ling Yu pursed his lips tightly, holding the edgeless sword in his hand, looking at the 10 red blades flying towards him. The extremely sharp fluctuations even caused the distortion of space on the way. Taking a deep breath, Ling Yu narrowed his eyes slightly. The next moment, his eyes suddenly widened, and a 6-pointed star kaleidoscope appeared instantly. My body is like a sword, extremely sharp. As a purple light flashed on the Wu Fang sword, Ling Yu and the Wu Fang sword were simultaneously enveloped by the purple light. As the light flashed, 4 soul rings on his body also floated from his body at the same time. Third soul skill, demonization, buzz. With the effect of the second passive soul skill and the third soul ring, his body began to swell slightly. His arms began to bulge with angular muscles, and his thighs began to become thicker. At the same time, other parts of his body also began to bulge at the same time as these 2 parts. A heavy force and sharp breath instantly emanated from Ling Yu's body. Huh? He exhaled a puff of white smoke from his mouth, and the Tai Chi soul core in his Danshin began to rotate rapidly, and purple-black lightning appeared on his body. I'll use you to experiment with the swordsmanship I created. Ling Yu stared at the huge and bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus opposite him with a sharp look. The wings behind him flapped quickly, and his body suddenly fell from the air to the ground, but the 10 blood-colored ripples in the air seemed to have their own tracking system, firmly locking onto Ling Yu's position and rushing towards him. Ling Yu's body sank slightly, his legs bent, his left hand holding the scabbard, his right hand holding the hilt, his eyes calm as water as he looked at the attack above his head. Extreme. Flash, Yi. The moment the voice fell, a purple-black light suddenly filled the white world with only this color, like wind, like water, without waves, without traces and without boundaries. The light was like a flash of light, and disappeared in an instant, and at the same time, the 10 blood-colored ripples above his head also disappeared. A bit of astonishment flashed in the one-eyed man's eyes, and he looked at Ling Yu in amazement. This sword technique is very powerful. His fierce muzzle curled up slightly. In my short life, except for a human being hundreds of thousands of years ago and the Snow Emperor, no one can compare to you. Not to mention that you are only in your teens. At this age, with a strength of less than a Soul King, you can actually withstand this move. Although I just did it casually, it is undeniable that your talent is better than mine. His dragon eye looked at Ling Yu with a bit of weird excitement. Maybe it really works on you, he said the last sentence quietly, so Ling Yu, who was breathing heavily on the ground beside him, could not hear it. Thank you for the compliment, Ling Yu panted slightly, and a bit of wisdom flashed in his eyes. Why, the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus looked at Ling Yu with a slight arc on his mouth. What? I mean, why do you hide your strength? Why don't you really attack me? Ling Yu held the long sword in his hand, looked up at the huge monster above his head, and asked in confusion, I learned from the Snow Emperor that you killed a lot in the extreme north and couldn't control the evil thoughts in your heart. At the same time, I also learned some introductions about your abilities, but from that move just now, I feel that you definitely have more than 100,000 years of cultivation. The bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus looked at him with some amusement, as if waiting for him to continue asking. I don't know what other purpose you have, I just want to ask, do you have any relationship with the evil soul master in the abyss plane? Asking this question, Ling Yu's eyes became sharper than ever, and the veins on his hands were pierced, as if he would use his strongest means if he was not satisfied with the other party's answer in the next moment. Even though he was likely to be seriously injured, he still did not change his attitude and will to fight the evil soul master to the death. Tisk, the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus looked at Ling Yu with deep admiration. Are you talking about that group of losers? Those stinky rats. Hearing this, Ling Yu breathed a sigh of relief, but he still tightly grasped the edgeless sword and looked at the other party, waiting for the follow-up. Chapter 172. 1 Eyes passed. Those stinking rats don't know my location and information at all. Otherwise, do you think I can still stand here and talk to you now? The one-eyed man said with some mockery. My identity is not only known to the God Realm, but also to the Abyss Plane, which has made sufficient information preparations for the God Realm and Douluo. They also know me very well. After all, my predecessor killed a first-level god and many other second- and third-level gods. They must have done a full investigation of my information. He spread his wings, and purple and red lights kept flashing alternately on his body, covering his huge body with a bit of desolation and mystery. If we say that among the Dragon King level combat power of the Dragon Clan, except for the 2 still alive guys, the Gold and Silver Dragon Kings, the remaining Dragon Kings are most likely to be resurrected. I am the only one left. After all, I am different from them. In terms of talent, they are weaker than me, and in terms of survival ability, they are far behind me. After all, as long as there are a large number of dragon corpses, I can be resurrected. Ling Yu didn't know why the other party told him this, but at this moment, he didn't choose to attack. After all, he had already understood from the other party's casual attack just now. The soul beast in front of him was definitely not weaker than the Snow Emperor. But he didn't know why the other party chose to hide his strength. Even the Snow Emperor, the king of the far north who was almost 700,000 years old, was kept in the dark. Seeing the surging momentum on Ling Yu dissipate, the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus smiled a little bigger, but behind this smile, Ling Yu always felt a sense of self-mockery. I was born at the beginning of the birth of the dragon race, reborn from evil thoughts, and reborn from dragon blood. My body is filled with the blood of my descendants and peers, and my spirit is filled with their thoughts. When I was first born, because of the evil breath of my breath, the boy Guangming directly cut me with a knife. But my thoughts are immortal. In other words, even if my body is destroyed, my soul is still immortal. The second time I was born in the Battle of the Gods, I was indeed eroded by their thoughts at that time, which also caused me to fall into madness for a time. Whether it was a dragon or someone else, I would kill them when I saw them. This also gave me the name of a bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus. To be honest, I don't like this name. Ling Yu's expression was a little stunned, but he suddenly realized in his heart. If according to what the other party said, only his body dissipated, but his thoughts would not disappear, then this person is a creature who has lived from the beginning of the birth of the dragon race to the present, and this is a person who has lived longer than Zhu Di and Wu Feng. Even if his thoughts have been floating around, he can indeed be called an immortal creature. At the beginning, my strength was suppressed by the dragon god, and my strength progressed very slowly. The lack of cultivation made it extremely cumbersome and slow for me to sort out the complicated thoughts in my mind. By the time I spent time to completely sort out my thoughts and blood, the war in the god realm had already entered a white-hot stage. At that time, the two dragon kings of fire and water had just fallen, and I was summoned by the dragon god. I bathed in the blood of the dragon clan and the gods, and grew to the level of a first-level god in a very short time. His tone was a bit depressed. Originally, after I sorted out my evil thoughts, my own thoughts were already extremely powerful. If I just bathed in the blood of the dragon clan and absorbed the thoughts of the dragon clan, my strength would grow quickly and safely, because we are from the same clan. In addition, during the war in the god realm, all the dragon clan members were extremely firm in their beliefs and were willing to help me, which led to me sorting out these thoughts very quickly. But I also know that even so, it is still a bit slow for the current war. Ling Yu stared at the giant dragon in front of him. He could see that the other party's hands were gradually clenched, and a strong unwillingness emerged on his face. I had no choice but to absorb the blood and divine thoughts of the other party's god at the same time. That's why I became a killing machine. In the end, I died together with a first-level god in the divine world. Ling Yu didn't say a word, but listened to the other party's story quietly without interrupting. He seemed to realize what the other party would say next, but this thought made him feel a little absurd. The one-eyed man opened his eyes and looked at the sky above his head, with a bit of nostalgia flowing in his eyes. When I woke up, I was in a dragon clan space, where all the dragon clan's true dragons and dragon gods with god-level combat power work together. He stared at Ling Yu and smiled. I lied to Zhu Di. The upper limit of strength there is not the title Douluo, but the 98th Super Douluo. Only one step away from reaching the level of the ultimate Douluo. Ling Yu's pupils shrank suddenly. That is to say, you are now. Yes, I have already reached the level of the ultimate Douluo. Now I can be called a quasi-god. I have surpassed the level of demigod. I am only one step away from becoming a god, and I am the kind of dragon king who can reach the first level of god in a short time after breaking through the limit. In this continent, I am the strongest. Even the whale in the sea that is almost 1,000,000 years old can be killed by me with one claw. Not to mention the little black dragon cub in Tsingtao. Ling Yu took a breath of cold air, and cold sweat broke out on his body instantly. He actually wanted to compete with a quasi-god this time, and wanted to kill the other party to make the fifth soul ring. If the other party had not inexplicably not had the intention to kill him, he would have gone to get the true scriptures long ago. But why did you tell me all this? Hearing Ling Yu's question, the one-eyed man did not answer, but continued, I reshaped my body in the space, and spent a long time sorting out and reshaping my bloodline, because my soul level has reached the first level of divine conflict. But because it is too complicated, I also spent a lot of time to sort out and integrate it. When I came out, it was 5 years ago. At that time, fortunately, I was smart and had a strong divine consciousness, so I escaped the search of those stinky rats. Otherwise, even if I didn't die, I would be seriously injured by their trump cards, or my body would be shattered again. But, aren't you a quasi-god? Ling Yu asked in surprise. Are there any evil soul masters who can compete with you? The evil soul masters don't, but the stinky rats in the abyss do. I can feel a fearful and threatening aura from their leader. It should be a super artifact. In addition, the other party also has the strength of a demigod, so even I can't easily compete. Of course, my main purpose is to hide it from the gods above my head. They are my biggest threat. The thunder tribulation 2 years ago was also because my strength has reached a higher level. The age has reached 600,000 years, and now my strength can't be improved anymore. He lowered his head slightly, keeping the dragon head and Ling Yu's body at the same level. But your arrival has given me a glimmer of hope for the revival of the dragon race. His eyes were sincere and a little odd, a kind of awe for a great existence that was many levels higher than the God King in the God realm. The test just now allowed me to see your talent, and I firmly believe that my choice will not be wrong. He had a teasing look in his eyes. Don't you want me to be your fifth soul ring? I can fulfill your wish. As long as you promise me to help me revive the dragon race, I will sacrifice for you unconditionally. What do you think? Do you want to consider it? Although he had some guesses in his mind, Ling Yu still felt a little incredible when he heard these words. Chapter 173 Cooperation Achieved. Ling Yu looked at him in disbelief. The giant dragon in front of him, which was 20 to 30 meters long, had reached the peak of strength on this continent. It was hard for him to accept that he suddenly said such words. Are you kidding me again? Ling Yu said in a daze. This kind of joke is not funny. Seeing that Ling Yu did not agree immediately, he sneered and was not tempted by this matter. A little satisfaction appeared in his pupils again. Yes or no, you already have the answer in your heart, right? The one-eyed man glanced at his chest, with a meaningful look. Hearing this, Ling Yu raised his hand and gently stroked his chest, and fell into deep thought for a while. This matter caught him off guard. A soul beast with potential comparable to that of the Dragon King and strength that had reached the level of a quasi-god wanted to sacrifice himself at once. Such a good thing was too unbelievable even for him to help the other party revive the dragon race. Then since your strength is enough to control your emotions, why did Snow Emperor and Ice Emperor tell me that you are still killing people in the far north? Ling Yu asked doubtfully. Is it just to hide yourself? He raised his head, widened his Sharingan, and stared into the other's eyes. Logically speaking, you don't need to do this with your strength. After all, you are at the quasi-god level. Even if you can't beat the evil soul masters and the few missed ones from the abyss plane, you should be able to escape easily. Besides, why did you go to Zhengdao? To find Dawn. The one-eyed man gave him a strange look. A puff of white smoke spurted out of his nose, and he shrugged humanely and said, really, you little brat are very different from the humans I met before. Logically, if you humans hear that a powerful soul beast like me is going to sacrifice to you, although the purpose may not be pure, you should at least show excitement and impatience. But what about you? You are not moved at all. You are really weird. But I like it. He lay on the ground casually, glancing at Ling Yu with one eye. Well, my strength has reached the level of a quasi-god after all, and coupled with this special nature of my bloodline, I will have 5 years at most to overcome the divine beast calamity. If I succeed, I will become the first level 1 divine dragon since the Great War in the divine realm. If I lose, I will find a place to revive again. At this point, he raised his head and looked at the sky. His tone was a bit self-deprecating, but I know that if a dragon like me wants to become a god, the divine realm will never give me this opportunity. In other words, this body of mine will live for a maximum of 5 years, but I should say that the invasion of the abyss plane is an opportunity for me, and I am also aware of some of their plans. Time and space turbulence. This thing is going to sweep the entire divine realm. His eyes were a little fiery, but deep down there was an obvious calm. But even if the divine realm disappears, the rules set by the divine realm will still exist, and I still can't become a god. In addition, the first time I stepped into the extreme north, I felt a breath on you. Not only did I have the breath of the coward Silver Dragon King, but I also felt a breath that made me tremble and want to crawl. But I am a dragon of the Dragon King level, and I actually had this feeling. This is very unusual. The one-eyed man narrowed his eyes slightly. looked at Ling Yu and continued, I can feel that it is definitely the breath of the Dragon Clan, but the level is much higher than that of the Dragon God. So, do you still doubt my purpose now? Ling Yu nodded. Although the other party was right, he did not feel any malice from the other party, but the other party must have some other purpose, but he did not know this purpose yet, but he could also feel that even if the other party had other purposes, it would not affect him. He guessed that it must be related to the God realm. It is likely to modify the fact that soul beasts cannot become gods. Of course, it may be something else. This is just the first time a man and a beast meet, and he can't think of more information. This soul beast gives him a different feeling from other soul beasts. It is very thoughtful and has a strong sense of independence. However, he also has the Yinglong scale as a trump card. According to the reaction of the dragon scale in the previous times, as long as the soul beast does something to endanger his life, this Yinglong scale will most likely protect its master. So with this point, cooperating with a bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus in front of him is also a matter of more benefits than disadvantages. I promise you, after thinking for a while, Ling Yu said seriously, after I become a god, if the god realm disappears, I will help you revive the Dragon Clan, or I have already promised this agreement to Nair, that is, the Silver Dragon King you mentioned. Nair, the one-eyed man looked at the moment Ling Yu mentioned this name, and the longing and love inadvertently revealed in his eyes. As the king of the Dragon Clan who has lived for hundreds of thousands of years, how could he not understand the meaning of this? I didn't expect that the Silver Dragon King would make such a choice, the one-eyed man said with some excitement in his eyes. Sure enough, he is worthy of being the half-body of the Dragon God who is famous for his wisdom. He actually made the choice so early. In this way, what I said just now seems to be in vain. If I had known about this relationship, I would have been eager to sacrifice to you. Ling Yu didn't pay too much attention to the one-eyed man in front of him who was making a joke. Instead, he continued to ask, if you want to sacrifice to me, doesn't your soul have immortal attributes? In this case, then in what form should you exist? Attach your soul to the soul ring. The one-eyed man looked at him in surprise. This time he was really stunned. I didn't expect you to think of this. The bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus raised an arc at the corner of his mouth and chuckled. You are right, my soul has an immortal attribute. Even if the God King or the Dragon God is alive, they can't really kill me. So the way I sacrifice is different from what you imagined. Ling Yu looked at him strangely. Different? How is it different? Well, it's a bit like I am the soul ring, and the soul ring means me. The one-eyed man thought for a while and explained carefully. In other words, I can be your other fighting force. When you fight normally, I will transform and help you fight, which is equivalent to giving you an extra helper. Ling Yu looked at him in surprise. It was the first time he heard of this kind of sacrifice. Can it be like this? The one-eyed man stretched his wings a little proudly. He was very impressed by the praise of a young man with a mysterious background, an extraordinary origin, and a rare talent in the world. Chapter 174 Sacrifice. After the man and the beast finished their discussion, the sacrifice began. Compared to the sacrifice of the demon-eye peacock when Ling Yu obtained the third soul ring, this time the scale and movement were much larger. The one-eyed man stared at Ling Yu seriously. To be honest, he had been thinking about this plan for a while. This sacrifice was not a whim. As early as when Ling Yu stepped into the extreme north, he had already had this idea. Now he felt a breath of the Silver Dragon King and the Ice and Fire Dragon King on the other party, and he was more sure that his choice would not be wrong. Are you ready? The one-eyed man said solemnly. If you are ready, I will start. Ling Yu took a deep breath and nodded solemnly to the one-eyed man. The next moment, a red light that shot straight into the sky penetrated the entire sky from the extreme north. At this time, countless soul beasts in the extreme north looked up here. Soul beasts less than 100,000 years old all prostrated on the ground, and the majestic momentum completely enveloped the extreme north. The Snow Emperor and the Ice Emperor in the core circle of the far north simultaneously looked at Ling Yu with solemn and shocked eyes. This sudden momentum caught them off guard. What is this breath? The Ice Emperor's unbelievable voice sounded here. One eye. How can he have such strong strength? With such strength, Zuir, even you can't be so strong. The Snow Emperor nodded with a slightly pale face. Her lips slightly opened, and she didn't know what to say for a while. One eye, the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus, is hiding so deeply. The Snow Emperor stared at the light column that could be seen for thousands of miles with some incomprehension, and said in a daze for a while, why did he do this? No one could answer him, not even Ling Yu at this time. He only knew that the dragon had no ill will towards him, but the other party must have some secrets that could not be told. At least the other party's situation is definitely not as simple as the Snow Emperor and the One Eye said. Ling Yu, just as he stood there, trying his best to resist and absorb the soul power of the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus, the voice of the One Eye in the air began to sound. My power is unbearable for you now. You have to wait until your mental power and physical body reach the level of ultimate Douluo before you can fully absorb my power. Ling Yu's face flushed, veins on his forehead exposed, and his face was very ferocious. As early as the moment when the one-eyed sacrifice began, he felt a squeezing sound coming from his body. Now he didn't even have the ability to speak, and could only control his physical body and mental power to absorb this huge energy. The bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus Rex, whose physical body was gradually disappearing in the air, saw the situation of Ling Yu on the ground, and quickly used his unique soul characteristics to compress his energy. I will gradually seal my energy. Every time your strength increases, my seal will be loosened, releasing enough energy for you to withstand and absorb. This will greatly increase the growth rate of your soul power and at least double your cultivation speed. Next is the real test. You have to hold on. The one-eyed man's voice was a reminder. Also, I will give you 2 soul bones. I can probably guess the information about me that Zudi told you, but because I am hiding my strength, I need to tell you again. My abilities are very strong in all aspects, and every level is at the same level as the Dragon King. However, there are 2 aspects that are most outstanding. One is mental power. You know this, because my mental power has an immortal attribute, and my soul is immortal. The first soul bone I give you is the head soul bone, which will give you 2 powerful mental soul skills. You need to experience the specific effects yourself. The second is the ability I have always hidden, time. At this point, his body in the air had completely disappeared, but strangely, there was still an illusory golden dragon shadow in the sky, like a mirage, shining with golden light, dazzling and dazzling. Even if I don't tell you, you should be able to guess how powerful this ability is. The second soul bone I gave you is a torso bone. It will not only greatly enhance your body, but also my time ability will be condensed into a soul skill in the soul bone. Hearing this, Ling Yu, whose face was still ferocious and red on the ground, was very excited. It's actually a time soul skill. Ling Yu smiled, but at this moment, this smile on his face seemed a little scary and weird. Wu Feng had said before that the evil god bead in his ring had the attribute of time. When the next soul ring was obtained, he would help himself integrate the attribute of the evil god bead, and try to help himself use the time attribute in it to condense a powerful time-related soul skill. But I didn't expect that the one-eyed man had this ability. Did Zudi say that his 2 strongest soul skills were the latent dragon and the wrath of the dragon god? Ling Yu tried hard to open his eyelids and glanced at the one-eyed man above. You, Lao Liu, are really good at hiding things. The one-eyed man didn't pay attention to Ling Yu's expression. At this moment, his illusory figure, his 2 dragon claws clenched together, his eyes slightly narrowed as if he was preparing for some ritual. Because my soul is immortal, it is very difficult to integrate it into the spirit ring or enter your spiritual sea, but it is not unsolvable. The dragon race has a unique way of sacrifice. This method can make the dragons above the true dragon level of the dragon race have a deeper connection with the sacrificed person and a closer relationship during the sacrifice process. In the past, after the soul beasts were sacrificed, the soul beasts were basically in a low position and humans were in a high position, but my method is more demanding than the previous one. Once this method is used, the relationship between the 2 of us is basically that you are the master and I am the servant. You can control my life and death, but I can't affect you at all. But at the same time, this method will also deeply bind the relationship between the 2 of us. Even if you become a god on the future, you can't resurrect me. I will always follow you. Ling Yu's eyes widened, watching the one-eyed illusory body above his head gradually becoming more dazzling, and the golden light became more dazzling, like a group of suns, about to shine on the earth. Seeing him like this, the one-eyed man raised his lips and chuckled. Don't worry, becoming a god cannot resurrect me, but I believe that as long as you surpass the gods, you should be able to resurrect me. By then, I will still be the one to take advantage of you. Ling Yu looked at the other party with some confusion. Only the hazy figure of Wu Fang and the Wu Fang sword looked at the one-eyed man above his head meaningfully, his eyes full of emotion. What a big deal. Wu Fang's voice floated in the long sword, without attracting anyone's attention. This is investing everything on it. Should I say that the other party is stupid? Or is his vision extremely sharp? The dragon scale on Ling Yu's chest must have a terrifying origin, but just relying on this plus the aura of the Silver Dragon King and the Ice and Fire Dragon King on him to make such a big deal is simply. Chapter 175 Absorption. Ling Yu did not hear Wu Feng's words. After hearing Du Yan's words, he had a further understanding of the power of the scales on his chest. Whether it was Du Yan, the Silver Dragon King, or the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus in front of him at this moment, Du Yan, they were all greatly affected by the scales on their chests. Du Yan treated him strangely. Nader had been following him all the time, and was affected by the aura of this dragon scale. The injuries she suffered from the 5 great gods were almost recovered in just a few years. And Du Yan in front of him, just because he felt the aura of this scale on his body, coupled with the bleak future, and the aura of Nader and the Ice and Fire Dragon Ball on him, he actually made such a big sacrifice and decision. It's incredible. You have to know that this is a quasi-god level Dragon King. No matter in terms of talent or potential, except for Nader, even the 9 Dragon Kings are suppressed in these 2 aspects. But such an existence actually chose to sacrifice himself, and even sacrificed in a more demanding way. If it was because of his personal charm, Ling Yu didn't think he had such a big face. It seems that I still underestimated the value and influence of this dragon scale. Ling Yu's face was ferocious, but his eyes were very shrewd as he thought about this matter. I don't know what my grandfather's intention was in giving me this dragon scale. What role did he play in this? Various thoughts emerged in his mind, but due to the limitation of strength or some other factors, even if he could now compete with the title Douluo, he still could not discover the secret of the dragon scale on his chest. Thinking carefully, so far, Ling Yu has received active help from the dragon scale 3 times. The first time was when he absorbed the spirit ring for the first time, and the second time was when he killed the evil spirit master for the first time. Because he was confused and initially understood his own path, he received a primordial purple air rewarded by the dragon scale. As for the third time, when he was killing the dark demon evil god Tiger, he was accidentally pulled into the arena by the opponent. When he was careless and was about to be enveloped by the evil god's aura, the dragon scale spontaneously protected the master. These 3 times were the times that the dragon scale had helped him. Thinking carefully, these 3 times corresponded to his cultivation, will, and life and death crisis. So what would happen if the dragon scale appeared again next time? Becoming a god? Or passing the assessment of the god's residence? Or falling into life and death crisis again? Ling Yu shook his head, threw away all these distracting thoughts in his mind, and focused on resisting and absorbing the huge energy of the one-eyed man. Buzz! At this moment, a soul ring with 6 golden lines wrapped around it and completely showing golden red appeared above Ling Yu's head. I believe that Zudi has already introduced you to the 2 soul skills I have revealed. The illusory figure of the one-eyed man floated in the air, carefully looking at the young man wrapped in the golden red soul ring, and whispered, "My 2 soul skills cannot be given to you all at once, because the acquisition of soul skills is different with the different ways of my sacrifice. At this time, because the one-eyed man tried his best to compress the seal energy, Ling Yu, who stood on the ground with both feet and absorbed the soul ring with all his strength, looked much better. Although he was still a little red, he was no longer in a painful and hideous state. Because of my soul power seal, my 2 soul skills will only give you 1 soul skill at the beginning, and I set 4 seals. You will get 1 more soul skill every time you unlock 2. When you completely unlock the seal, my soul ring can provide you with a total of 3 soul skills. This is also because when my strength reaches the quasi-god level, the soul power in my body has already transformed into divine power. This makes my soul ring already a god-level soul ring. Even if it is not 1,000,000 years, it is very similar to 1,000,000 years. Ling Yu did not react at all. Although he was very shocked, he did not have the time to respond to the one-eyed man now. He could clearly sense the cultivation level of the one-eyed from the soul ring on his head, 690,000 years. Only 10,000 years away from reaching the soul ring of 700,000 years. But because the other party, the bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus, was a Dragon King level dragon, even though he and the Snow Emperor were both close to 700,000 years of cultivation, one could only reach the limit of Douluo, while the other had already reached the quasi-god. This was the importance of blood and soul beasts, comparable to the difference in human martial arts. Ling Yu gradually controlled the bending of his legs, slowly sat cross-legged on the ground, pinched his hands and posed in a cultivation posture. His inhuman body was fully transforming and absorbing the energy of the soul ring. The dragon scales on his chest were constantly heating up, and the energy river in his danchan was constantly expanding, constantly increasing towards the scale of the vast ocean. Looking at this situation, it won't be long before the energy river in the danchan can completely form an energy ocean. By then, his soul power alone can be comparable to that of a tidal Douluo. With such a background, Ling Yu couldn't believe what level of strength he would reach when he became a god. A first-level god comparable to a god king? Or even higher? The beam of light disappeared very quickly. Because the one-eyed man was a sacrifice, Ling Yu's absorption of the spirit ring was extremely short compared to the past. However, the absorption of the spirit ring was secondary. What made the domain even more delighted was the golden lines on his right arm bone that wrapped around half of his right arm bone, and the absorption of the spirit bone that was covered with 1/3 of the golden lines on his spine. Ling Yu couldn't believe the harvest of this trip. He stood up, clenched his fist lightly, and felt the strength of his body. Marrow cleansing 5 times, he actually cleansed his marrow 3 times at once. This is simply amazing. The physical strength is at least 50,000 kilograms. Even a tidal Douluo can't withstand my punch now, right? Feeling the powerful strength of his body, Ling Yu's mouth curled up a smile. The rapid growth of his strength made him feel very comfortable. This feeling is so wonderful. Soul power 57 level, the soul power has risen by 7 levels at once. Although he can only withstand the energy of 100,000 years at present, and the rest of the energy has been sealed by the one-eyed man, but with the 2 soul bones, he has still been pushed to the level of 57. And the soul skills I have obtained. This time the harvest in the extreme north is too great. Alright kid. Just when Ling Yu was immersed in the growth of strength and was excited for a while, a fainting voice suddenly came from above his head. He looked up, and at this time, the huge illusory figure of the one-eyed man became even more illusory, but it seemed that there was a rule appearing on the other party's body, as if no matter what kind of attack the other party's soul was subjected to, it would not be destroyed. This, Ling Yu's eyes flashed with some guilt. He could feel the weakness of the one-eyed man at this time, which made him gradually depressed. Don't show such a sissy expression. I'm a bloodthirsty Tyrannosaurus, the king of the dragon clan that the 9 dragon kings can't compare to. Seeing Ling Yu's expression, the one-eyed man floating in the air, even though he was very weak, but still domineering and rampant, said loudly, I have done everything I should do. Next, my soul will be attached to the soul ring, and I will fall into a period of dormancy. It will take at most a year to recover. During this time, you can practice in the extreme north or step into the mainland, but you must remember, don't go to Douluo. There are several people there who are very dangerous. Even if I am in my prime, I dare to guarantee that I can defeat them. So everything must be based on your own safety. After all, your life is not just your own now. Remember, after saying that, before Ling Yu could reply, the other party's illusory body turned into a stream of light and was absorbed into Ling Yu's body, disappearing. Only the young man with confused and determined eyes was left standing straight in the same place. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.